Story start. It was another peaceful in Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves. One of the great 5 villages of the elemental nations. Well, if by peaceful you mean having the Hokage monument painted by none other than 12-year-old Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Demon Fox, Kyuubi. Right now, Naruto was being chased down by 2 chunin around Konoha, the blonde Uzumaki laughing the entire time. Ha ha ha, give it up. You're just mad because you don't have the guts to do what I did. Booyah, losers. Wannabes. You'll never catch me. Laughed Naruto as he jumped off of the many buildings of Konoha before he tricked the 2 chunin by pretending to jump ahead, while instead deciding to hide behind a blanket, which looked just like the fence behind him. Ahahaha, that was too easy. He laughed, not noticing his teacher Irika Umino behind him. Oh yeah, Naruto? Asked Irika, shouting, making Naruto jump and scream slightly at the sudden surprise of having his teacher appear behind him out of nowhere. Where'd you come from, Irika-sensei? What are you doing here? Asked Naruto as he landed on his backside, having somehow defied physics by staying in the air longer and turning himself around as he fell. No, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in class, stated Irika as Naruto gulped slightly. Konoha Ninja Academy, half an hour later. I'm at the end of my rope, Naruto, stated Irika as he looked down at Naruto, who was now tied up by ropes. No one besides a certain shy Hyuga in the back noticing as a barely noticeable purple chakra gathered around Naruto's right hand for a fraction of a second as Irika continued to berate him, making Naruto grunt. Alright. Because you missed it, Naruto. Everyone will review the transformation jutsu, stated Irika, making most of the class groan as they all got into line. All the students transforming into Irika, some students with some oddities in their transformation, but most of them got it down. Soon enough it came to Naruto's turn. Transformation jutsu, shouted Naruto as blue chakra started swirling around him for a second before he was covered in a plume of smoke. As the smoke faded away, instead of the expected Irika clone, in Naruto's place was an attractive adult woman with twin blonde pigtails which had a strange tint of purple to it, and Naruto's signature, whisker-like birthmarks on her cheeks. The real killer? She was completely naked besides some convenient smoke covering her private areas. Upon seeing this, Irika couldn't help but to be shot back by the torrent of blood, which shot out of his nose. Ha 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 ha. Got you. That's my sexy jutsu, laughed Naruto as he returned to normal in a puff of smoke as he pointed at Irika. Cut the stupid tricks. This is your last warning, shouted Irika, his head growing to about 3 times its usual size. Konoha Ninja Academy the next day. Today was graduation day at the Ninja Academy, where the genin hopefuls would test to see if they could graduate and become a part of a genin squad. The final test for becoming a genin consisted of preforming the clone jutsu, something which Naruto could never preform for the life of him. So far, all the students managed to pass their tests and gain the right to wear the Konoha symbol on their headbands. Now it was Naruto's turn to try and preform the clone jutsu. Alright Naruto, you can do this, thought Naruto to himself, as he tried to encourage himself as once again, his chakra started to swirl around him. Clone jutsu! He cried out as a puff of smoke appeared next to him, which dispersed to show nothing but a pale and lifeless version of Naruto. You fail, shouted Irika, making Naruto's world seem to spin into a spiral of darkness, as more of the unusual purple chakra flared off of his body in millisecond-long bursts, being unnoticeable to the naked eye. Irika, he's off, but his moves weren't bad and he did hang in there and use the clone jutsu. This is his 3rd attempt at becoming a ninja, so you know he's determined. We could cut him a break and pass him, suggested Mizuki, Irika's teaching assistant, giving Naruto a little hope as the purple chakra stopped pulsing off of his body. Mizuki, the other students created at least effective clones, but Naruto could only create one, and look at it. It's pitiful. I can't pass him, sighed Irika, keeping his tone nice and even throughout his mini-speech while Naruto clenched his teeth, the purple chakra returning as a thin coat around his body, almost unnoticeable besides the slight purple tint that now surrounded Naruto before he ran out of the room and into the small field outside, where he had to deal with hearing all the other students brag about how they passed the test and became ninja while he sat alone on the swing set hanging from a tree while some parents muttered darkly about him before he noticed Mizuki standing next to him as the two talked for a while as the sun started setting. "Irika is tough, but he's not against you," stated Mizuki as he and Naruto sat on the roof of a building. "Then why? Why only me?" asked Naruto, referring to how Irika constantly berated him in class about slacking off and goofing about. "He wants you to be strong with all his heart, but that will never happen if he goes easy on you," stated Mizuki as Naruto looked sadly into the distance. "He's like you know? No parents, no family," he stated, making Naruto reel back in shock slightly as his left arm, which Mizuki couldn't see, was covered in a thin, but noticeable layer of purple chakra, which moved and bubbled like a hot liquid. "But this time, I really wanted to graduate," sighed Naruto sadly as the purple chakra, once again, disappeared into thin air, as if it was never there to begin with. "Then, I guess I have to tell you," smirked Mizuki, gaining Naruto's interest. "It's a secret, but I'm gonna let you in on it," he stated as Naruto stared at him. Time skip. Nighttime. The secret that Mizuki told Naruto was about a secret test to become a ninja. All Naruto would have to do would be to steal the scroll of seals from the Hokage's office and meet Mizuki in one of the forests outside of Konoha while also learning a jutsu from the scroll.
Multi-shadow clone jutsu?
"Oh, come on. That's my worst jutsu," sighed Naruto as he read the first entry in the scroll of seals before he decided to say screw it and try using it. Putting his hands in a cross-like symbol, he flared his chakra as he created 10 clones. "Wow, that's cool." He chuckled as he looked at his clones before noticing something. They had shadows. "Wait," he mumbled as he read more on the jutsu, learning its true capabilities before moving on to the next entry, poison style. "What's this?" he asked himself as he and his clones read up on poison style. The thing that caught their eyes was the fact that they mentioned the jutsu belonging to a bloodline. Deciding to try it out, Naruto picked the first jutsu he found on poison style and decided to test it out. "Poison style, poison swamp," he called out as he slammed his open palms onto the ground before purple chakra flowed off of his arms and created a bog-like area made out of the chakra, which smelt like death. Meanwhile, somewhere in the land of fire. "Huh?" asked a man with purple blonde hair, in his mid-30s, wearing a red long-sleeved shirt and a dark blue pair of long-legged pants with the traditional ninja sandals, as his blue eyes widened, feeling a power from Konoha which he never expected to feel in his lifetime, making his eyes darken as he realized that the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, lied to him about his nephew being dead 12 years ago before he started going through hand signs, ending it by biting his thumb hard enough to draw blood before he slammed his palm onto the ground, making a ceiling array appear before it disappeared in a plume of smoke, leaving before a horse-sized fox with 5 tails. "Huh? Oh hey there, Jin-sama. What is it you want this time?" asked the fox politely to the man. "Santo, I need you to carry me back to Konoha as fast as you can. It'd seem like my nephew is still alive," stated Jin as he put on a Konoha Jonin vest, which was torn and ripped from multiple battles, the holes being poorly stitched together. "So, not only is Naruto-sama alive, but he's awakened his bloodline?" asked Santo as he lowered his body enough that Jin could get on before the two made off in the direction of Konoha, not noticing as a man with long white hair stared at the two in shock as he heard the name Naruto. "Last time." "Huh? Oh hey there, Jin-sama. What is it you want this time?" asked the fox politely to the man. "Santo, I need you to carry me back to Konoha as fast as you can. It'd seem like my nephew is still alive," stated Jin as he put on a Konoha Jonin vest, which was torn and ripped from multiple battles, the holes being poorly stitched together. "So, not only is Naruto-sama alive, but he's awakened his bloodline?" asked Santo as he lowered his body enough that Jin could get on before the two made off in the direction of Konoha, not noticing as a man with long white hair stared at the two in shock as he heard the name Naruto. "Now, hey, boss, Irika-sensei is coming, shouted one of the many clones that Naruto had made to keep an eye out for Mizuki, and he looks really mad. It stated before it dispelled, giving Naruto its memories. All right, time show Irika-sensei what I learnt, smirked Naruto, his clothing covered in dirt. After reading up on everything about the multi-shadow clone jutsu, Naruto decided to use it to help him learn jutsu faster. He managed to use most of the poison-style moves while also learning some other forbidden jutsu, not that he knew what they were forbidden. He managed to get the basics down for a jutsu known as the Flying Thunder God. The main problem is that his clones kept on hitting themselves into trees and other things, painfully he might add. Finally, Naruto dispelled all of his clones, which amassed to about 50 clones, all at once making him fall onto his butt from the backlash while he swore he could hear a deep growling voice in the back of his mind growling about foolish humans. It's all over, eh? Smirked Irika as he walked up to the prone Naruto, who started to laugh. Huh? He asked, confused. Caught me already, not bad. You're quick, Irika-sensei. I only had time to learn a handful of techniques. Chuckled Naruto as he scratched the back of his head while Irika stared at him impressed. He's been out here practicing? I can tell how hard he's been working, thought Irika to himself as he looked over Naruto's form, taking notice of the sweat and dirt on his clothes. He also took notice of the purple-stained patches on Naruto's sleeves, stains which were usually from poison. Listen, Irika-sensei, I'm going to show you this awesome jutsu I learnt and you're going to let me graduate and everything will be okay. That's the way it works, right? Anyone who learns a jutsu from the scroll pass. Smirked Naruto, setting off major alarm bells in Irika's mind as his eyes widened. Where'd you get that idea? Asked Irika, worried that his student, his little brother figure, was tricked into doing a major act of treason against his village. Mizuki-sensei told me about it. He told me where to find the scroll and this place. There is no secret test, is there? Naruto asked, starting out as a rant before he noticed Irika's horrified face, before he noticed a bunch of kunai and shuriken flying towards Irika. Poison style. Poison blockade. He called out as purple chakra rose out of the ground, forming a massive wall which blocked the kunai and shuriken. So that's how it is. I should have known, sighed Irika, not showing his surprise that Naruto learnt that jutsu as he turned towards the tree behind him where Mizuki was standing. Naruto, give me the scroll now, demanded Mizuki as he stared down at Naruto and Irika, the former being confused as all hell right now. What's going on here? Asked Naruto, confused as he lowered the wall of poison. Naruto, don't let Mizuki get the scroll. It contains forbidden jutsu that can put this village in grave danger. Mizuki used you to get the scroll for himself, for his own power, shouted Irika, making Naruto growl slightly as he glared at his academy teacher. Naruto, Irika's just trying to scare you, 'cause he doesn't want you to have the scroll, stated Mizuki calmly, making Naruto look between his two teachers. Stop lying, Mizuki. Don't let him trick you, Naruto, shouted Irika, making Mizuki chuckle as Naruto felt an odd tingling sensation go down the length of his spine as two glowing, red, slitted eyes stared at the three from within the bushes, its 5 tails waving through the air dangerously as it focused on Mizuki and Naruto specifically. Oh, I'll tell you who's really lying, smirked Mizuki, making Irika shout in protest of the suggested action. They've been lying to you your whole life, Naruto, since the decree 12 years ago, he stated, making Naruto even more confused than he already was. What decree? Asked Naruto as the red eyes moved behind him. Everyone knows except you. Irika's trying to hide it from you even now. He'd do anything to shut me up, smirked Mizuki, satisfied in knowing that. What is this decree, and why does everyone know about it? Asked Naruto, still hopelessly lost. Don't tell him. It's forbidden, shouted Irika in protest as he walked in front of Naruto, only to get pinned to the hut behind them by another volley of Mizuki's kunai. The decree is, no one can tell you the 9-tailed fox is inside you, stated Mizuki, a dark look on his face as Irika tried to pull the kunai off and out of him as Naruto's eyes widened. The fox spirit that killed Irika's parents and destroyed our village has taken over your body. You are the 9-0-tailed fox. He added, crushing Naruto's will even more that before. Stop it! Screamed Irika while Naruto's body started gaining a purplish tint to it as his poison chakra cloak started forming. They've all been sneaking around, hiding things from you your whole life. Didn't you think how it was strange how they treated you? Like dirt. Like they hated you, just for being alive. Continued Mizuki, noticing as Naruto's chakra started swirling around his body, turning indigo as it mixed with his poison chakra as he kept repeating, "No," over and over. "That's why you will never be accepted in this village. Even your beloved sensei hates your guts." He shouted once again as Irika managed to pull the last kunai out of his body. "Die, Naruto!" Mizuki shouted as he took one of the 3 massive shuriken he had attached to his back off before throwing it at Naruto, making the terrified 12-year-old forget all about the jutsu he learnt and try to crawl away. "Naruto, get down!" shouted Irika as Naruto did as his sensei ordered and put his head down while Irika bent his body over Naruto's own, expecting for the massive shuriken to pierce his back, only for nothing to come besides Mizuki's terrified gasp, making the teacher and student look at what had Mizuki so terrified before they saw a red, 5-tailed fox holding the shuriken with his tail. "You dare betray Konoha! Not only that, but you tried to hurt fellow Konoha citizens. And worst of all, you tried to hurt Naruto-sama. For that you will burn," shouted the fox in rage as his red eyes grew dangerously. "Who are you?" asked Naruto, terrified, before he realized that the fox knew his name. "And how do you know my name?" he added, making the fox calm down. "I am Kasai, a battle-based summon of the Demon Fox summoning contract, held by your uncle, Jean Namikaze," smirked the fox before the tips of all his tails lit up with blue flame. "Now, let me show this ungrateful bastard why my name means Firestorm." He smirked before the fires on his tails grew in size and turned blood red. "Demonic summoning art. Fox Fire Halo," he shouted as the fires shot towards Mizuki, who dodged them before being momentarily chased off by Kasai. "Why?" asked Naruto as Irika got off of him before sitting down. "Because we're the same. When I lost my parents, no one seemed to care. They didn't have time for me. They just forgot I was there. My grades dropped, I became the class clown. I just wanted them to see me, and to know my name. My schoolwork wasn't good enough to get their attention, so I did crazy things. And then I had to pay for it. It was hard. I know that's how you feel, Naruto. You feel lonely and it hurts inside. And I could have been there for you more. I let you down. I'm sorry. No one should have to suffer that much. No one should be alone like that," ranted Irika, tears flowing down his face as moisture gathered in the corner of Naruto's eyes before a white fox nuzzled its way in between them. "Don't cry. You both have each other now," begged the white fox before the trio heard chuckling as Mizuki landed back up on the tree he was earlier, before he threw the second of his large shuriken into Irika's back. "Don't make me laugh. Irika always hated you. He was orphaned because the 9-tailed fox killed his parents. And that beast is now inside you. He'd say anything to get the scroll from you," shouted Mizuki, laughing, making Naruto decide on what he would do next as he ran away as fast as he could, making Irika scream after him. "You big meanie! How did you beat Kaka?" shouted the white fox, making Mizuki laugh. "He was pathetic. All it took was a simple genjutsu and he went the entire wrong way," laughed Mizuki, making Irika growl as he pulled the shuriken out of his back before throwing it at Mizuki and running away, taking the white fox with him last time. "Don't make me laugh. Irika always hated you. He was orphaned because the 9-tailed fox killed his parents. And that beast is now inside you. He'd say anything to get the scroll from you," shouted Mizuki, laughing, making Naruto decide on what he would do next as he ran away as fast as he could, making Irika scream after him. "You big meanie! How did you beat Kaka?" shouted the white fox, making Mizuki laugh. "He was pathetic. All it took was a simple genjutsu and he went the entire wrong way," laughed Mizuki, making Irika growl as he pulled the shuriken out of his back before throwing it at Mizuki and running away, taking the white fox with him, sluggishly. "Now, We tune in as Irika is jumping through the trees of the forest looking for Naruto. Soon enough, he found said blonde jumping ahead of him with the scroll on his back. Naruto, everything Mizuki said was a lie. Gimme the scroll. Hurry. He's coming after you to take it away, shouted Irika as he sped up to catch up to Naruto, eventually overtaking him in terms of speed before Naruto tackled him in the chest with his shoulder, causing the two to fall to the ground below them. While Irika fell onto his back, Naruto managed to land on his feet while panting harshly. It can't be. Irika growled while Naruto backed up against a tree, holding the scroll in his lap. How did you know, Naruto? How did you know? Irika started as a puff of smoke covered his body, revealing Mizuki in his place. That it was me and not Irika. He growled, making Naruto smirk and chuckle before, like Mizuki, his body was covered in a puff of smoke, revealing Irika in his place. Because I'm Irika, smirked Irika, the scroll having been the white fox from earlier only transformed. You're a fool. Why are you protecting that freak? He's the one who wiped out your family, shouted Mizuki, unknowing that Naruto and a certain pissed-off five-tailed fox were listening. I don't care what you say. You're not getting your hands on that scroll, stated Irika firmly while the white fox nodded while glowing green. Ah, as if you could stop me. Don't you get it? Naruto is just like me, smirked Mizuki while the white fox growled at Mizuki in anger. How's that? Asked Irika, curious at the lies that Mizuki would spill. He wants the scroll for his own power and his own vengeance. That's how beasts are. He'll pour all of his rage into the scroll and destroy everything, stated Mizuki as if it was common knowledge, getting 2 growls from foxes in the real world and a growl from the 9-tailed fox, Kurama. You're right, started Irika, making Naruto gasp slightly at the thought that his sensei really didn't think of him as himself, only as a beast looking for vengeance. So it's true. Irika-sensei never believed in me, muttered Naruto to himself, not noticing as a figure landed in the tree he was leaning against. He thinks I'm some beast, some kind of freak. He muttered to himself as purple chakra started forming around his body, making the growling voice of Kurama louder in his mind as he could just vaguely make out words. Stop, toxic, destroy, chakra weak host, shouted Kurama's voice inside of Naruto's mind, his message being, stop using that toxic chakra. It will destroy your chakra. And I, the mighty Kyuubi, will not have a weak host. That is how beasts are, stated Irika, making Naruto's eyes widen slightly. But that's not who Naruto is. He's nothing like that. Naruto's one of a kind, works hard, puts his whole heart into it. Sure, he messes up sometimes and everyone jumps on him, but his suffering only makes him stronger. That's what separates him from being a beast. So you're wrong. He's nothing like the 9-tailed fox. He's Naruto Uzumaki, of the Hidden Leaf Village, shouted Irika, making the figure in the trees nod in understanding and joy while Naruto cried his eyes out pretty much while Mizuki took the last massive shuriken off of his back. You really believe that dribble? Irika, I was gonna save you for later, but I've changed my mind. You're finished, shouted Mizuki as he started spinning the shuriken, getting ready to throw said weapon at Irika before he was tackled out of the way by Naruto, making the shuriken fly way off course and through the trees, cutting off a few branches. Poison style. Paralysis bullet, shouted Naruto as he spat out a bullet of poison, which hit Mizuki dead on, making him hit a tree, leaving him in a standing position. Naruto, shouted Irika in shock as he stared at his student, who was covered in a visible and bubbled layer of poison which was shaped in a similar manner to a fox, with pointed ears and 9 tails swishing around in the air wildly. Not bad, for a little punk, growled Mizuki as he glared at Naruto, whose irises had turned red while his pupil became slitted. If you ever lay a hand on my sensei, I'll kill you, growled Naruto, making Mizuki smirk. Such big words. I can completely destroy you with a single move, shouted Mizuki as Naruto put his hands into the cross-like hand sign that belonged to his new favorite jutsu. Take your best shot, fool. I'll give it back to you 1,000-fold, growled Naruto while the figure stared at Naruto, joy evident in his eye as he watched the amount of chakra he was gathering before deciding to help. Let's do this, to the best of my ability. Summoning jutsu, shouted the figure as he slammed his bleeding hand onto the branch, causing a massive amount of one-tailed foxes to appear. Demon Fox Squat 8. Your mission is to help Naruto Uzumaki absolutely destroy the traitor Mizuki, shouted the figure, making all the foxes nod as they jumped behind Naruto. Shadow Clone Jutsu, shouted Naruto as he filled the entire clearing with smoke, which slowly disappeared to reveal that the entire clearing was filled with Naruto clones, each one covered in the same cloak as the original, making Irika stare at his student in awe and pride while Mizuki stared at the army in fear as he tried to move only to realize he couldn't as the squad of foxes and Kasai walked up next to Naruto and smirked at Mizuki. Karma is a bitch, isn't it, traitor? Asked Kasai, smirking as he had two of his tails form a cross-like seal. Demonic copy. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, Kasai shouted as more puffs of smoke erupted around the field, signaling the creation of Kasai's 20 clones, making a small dark patch start growing at the crotch of Mizuki's pants while Irika smirked, both proud of his student for creating solid clones, and taking a little satisfaction in what was about to happen. Poison style, poison bullet, demonic fire style, foxtail hellflame, shouted Naruto and Kasai at the same time as all the Naruto clones fired orbs of poison out of their mouths while the Kasai clones fired 5 balls of fire each, all of which shot towards Mizuki, leaving him as a burnt spasming mess on the floor. You okay, Irika-sensei? Asked Naruto as he dispelled all of his clones, not getting any sort of overload as thankfully they all had similar memories, Kasai doing the same. Yeah, nodded Irika as he noticed all of his wounds were healed. He's truly amazing. He wants to surpass all the previous Hokage, and I'm starting to believe he might do it, he thought to himself before the figure in the tree Jin Namikaze jumped down. Nice going there, kid. Using that jutsu with our bloodline is a great combo, smirked Jin as he patted Naruto on the back, making the kid look at him weirdly. What? Can't an uncle congratulate his nephew? He asked sarcastically, making Naruto and Irika stare at him in shock. You're my uncle. Where have you been for the last 12 years? Shouted Naruto in shock as he stared at Jin. Let me, Jin-sama. You see, Naruto-sama, Jin-sama was told by an unknown Umbu member that you were dead on the day of your birth, heartbroken by the loss of his brother, his sister-in-law and nephew. He left Konoha and traveled around the elemental nations. Recently, he found out you were alive when you used your bloodline, explained Kasai in a formal and polite tone of voice as he seemed to bow to Naruto while the squad of foxes Jin summoned disappeared in a puff of smoke. If you are Naruto's uncle, then show something that only you two could do, stated Irika, being cautious about the safety of his student, making Jin sigh before his body was coated in a visible and bubbled layer of poison. Similar to Naruto's, only his was more maroon in color before the poison moved to the center of his palm. Poison style. Poison hurricane, Jin shouted as a small tornado formed out of the poison while Naruto mimicked the action. Wait, you learned how to use this jutsu already, Naruto? Asked Jin in shock as he stared at the tornado in his nephew's hands. Yeah, it took my clones 10 minutes to learn, nodded Naruto, happy that he finally had family. How many clones did you have working on it? Asked Jin excitedly. I think 200. Mumbled Naruto, trying to remember while Jin's eyes seemed to light up. Holy moly, my nephew is a gold mine of a prodigy. Learnt the shadow clone jutsu, poison bullet, poison blockade, and poison hurricane in one night. And he learnt he can use shadow clones to help learn jutsu, thought Jin to himself as he decided to try something. Hey Naruto, I want to show you a jutsu my brother made. He started getting both Naruto and Irika's attention as Jin held out his left hand as a slight light escaped the sleeves of his shirt before a swirling ball of blue chakra formed in the middle of his palm. Now, using all your clones, try to copy this attack, smirked Jin as Irika stared at the attack in shock while Naruto stared at it in awe and excitement. All right, cheered Naruto as he used his favorite jutsu again, easily making over 1,000 clones before they all started trying to mimic the attack. Was that the Rasengan? The jutsu made by the fourth Hokage? Asked Irika in shock once Naruto was out of earshot. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it? I mean, I am his brother after all. I would know his jutsu, stated Jin as if it was a simple fact. Wait, are you saying that the fourth Hokage is Naruto's father? Shouted Irika in shock as he stared at the blonde who was using 4 clones to help make the swirling blue sphere of death known as Rasengan. Of course he is. Look between a colored picture of Minato and Naruto and you'll see the similarities. I mean, give Naruto some bangs on the side that go down his face, remove the whisker marks and you have Minato, stated Jin, making Irika freeze in shock as he went over the instructions in his mind, following them as well to realize that Jin was absolutely correct. An hour later, Jin was going to shout for Naruto to stop for the day before Naruto ran up to him and created a clone. Uncle, look, chuckled Naruto as he and his clone started swirling chakra around in Naruto's palm, creating a hollow version of a Rasengan. Awesome. Now test it on that tree. Smirked Jin, making Naruto nod as he slammed the Rasengan into the tree, doing no damage whatsoever. What? Oh, come on, groaned Naruto before he felt Jin pat him on the shoulder. Hey, you learnt the first step on your own without any help. Tomorrow I'll show you how to make it powerful. Smirked Jin, making Naruto smirk. Now, if I knew anything about Uzumakis, they love their ramen. How about we stop at this shop I know which your mother and father spend half their time dating? He added, making Naruto cheer before hurrying after his fleeing uncle, who was staring at his left arm. More specifically, the seals that were coming off HA. I'm gonna have to get Hokage-sama to reapply my chakra purification seals later tonight. He sighed to himself last time. What? Oh, come on, groaned Naruto before he felt Jin pat him on the shoulder. Hey, you learnt the first step on your own without any help. Tomorrow I'll show you how to make it powerful. Smirked Jin, making Naruto smirk. Now, if I knew anything about Uzumakis, they love their ramen. How about we stop at this shop I know which your mother and father spend half their time dating? He added, making Naruto cheer before hurrying after his fleeing uncle, who was staring at his left arm. More specifically, the seals that were coming off HA. I'm gonna have to get Hokage-sama to reapply my chakra purification seals later tonight. He sighed to himself. Now, it has been a few days since Mizuki tricked Naruto into stealing the scroll of sealing, the incident being personally dubbed the Mizuki incident by Hiruzen, Jin, Naruto, and Irika. In that time, Jin had started training Naruto in the shinobi arts, something which he found the whiskered blonde was missing a lot on. On the day directly after the incident, Naruto had met a young boy by the name of Konohamaru, who was trying to attack his grandfather, Hiruzen, the third Hokage. After following Naruto for a short while, Konohamaru got the chance to join Jin and Naruto in their training regimen, which the kid accepted. Now Jin was training the two boys before Naruto goes to team assignments, which had been delayed a few days because of the Mizuki incident. Come on, boys, you can do better than this, shouted Jin as he blocked kicks sent to the both sides of his head with his forearms. We're just getting warmed up, shouted Naruto as he kicked off of his uncle's forearm before his cheeks puffed out, Konohamaru snapping his fingers, causing a small ball of fire to ignite in his hand. Wind style, vacuum wave, shouted Naruto as he started spinning before firing a massive blade of wind at Jin before Konohamaru exclaimed his jutsu name. Fire style, exploding flame shot, shouted Konohamaru as he threw the small fireball into the blade of wind, catching the attack ablaze before Jin smirked and slammed both of his palms into the ground, causing a wall of poison to rise out of the ground. After it absorbed the force of the attack, it started turning into a tendril of poison which shot out at Konohamaru and Naruto. What? Shouted Konohamaru and Naruto in shock as they jumped out of the way of the attack, only to be grabbed by the leg by a tendril of poison coming out of the one they dodged. Boys, I mastered poison style to where I don't have to say the name of my jutsu. Something I advise you do as well, stated Jin seriously before the tendrils slammed the two boys into the ground before taking bells off of them. And another shinobi tip, always be prepared for your opponent to do anything. He smirked as he helped Naruto up before getting Konohamaru onto his back. Damn, I thought we had you with that, growled Naruto annoyed as his hand started glowing purple as a purple mist came out of Konohamaru's mouth before the grandson of the third Hokage shook himself awake and jumped off of Jin's back. You two had a dangerous combo, especially since you are hardly a genin, Naruto, while Konohamaru is a civilian. I'm genuinely impressed by your advancement. Though, I have to wonder why you didn't use your clones, Naruto, stated Jin as he bent down to Naruto's height. Well, recently using clones is starting to hurt. Like my chakra is being damaged, mumbled Naruto slightly as a cloak of purple chakra, in the form of a fox manifested around him, making Jin's eyes widen in shock and concern. Naruto, I need you to trust me with something, all right? Requested Jin as he wrote something on his left hand, while Naruto nodded. Uzumaki sealing jutsu? Bloodline limit seal, Jin shouted as he slammed his palm onto Naruto's chest, causing lines of seals to move around his chest as if on diagonal lines before wrapping around his back and linking together with the kanji for 9 in the center of a circle of seals. What was that for? Shouted Naruto in pain and surprise, a slight golden glow escaping from between his shoulder blades. You have a highly advanced poison style, which if left unchecked is highly dangerous for your chakra coils, sighed Jin as he took off his shirt, showing that he also had a bloodline limit seal on his chest as well as a line of seals on his left arm. I used poison style too much, and now I have to use this chakra purification seal array that your father and mother made together to use any form of jutsu beyond poison style. The reason is that poison style is highly corrosive, meaning that it will break down any chakra it touches. Our bodies are modified to stop that on a basic level. But prolonged or regular use can have a very dangerous effect. I can no longer produce regular chakra, only poison chakra. Jin sighed as he put his shirt back on, Naruto looking at his before realizing that somehow Jin put a seal on his chest through his shirt. Wait, I didn't understand most of that, but how did you put a seal on me through my shirt? Asked Naruto confused. The Uzumaki clan were feared for their seals. I learned how to use them from Kushina. Some of them are really amazing, smirked Jin before he remembered what day it was. And Naruto, isn't team assignments on in 10 minutes? He asked, making Naruto's eyes widen before he created a clone, which he started spinning around before he threw it towards the academy, screaming all the way. Bro, what's that for? Asked Konohamaru before he noticed Naruto was covered in a poof of smoke, leaving behind Naruto. Boss could have warned me before he did that, shouted Naruto, before he exploded into a puff of smoke. Using the substitution jutsu and the shadow clone jutsu as a means of transportation? That's interesting, smirked Jin before he picked Konohamaru up onto his shoulders and used the body flicker jutsu to get to the Hokage's office, where he dropped off Konohamaru before using the previously mentioned jutsu again to get to the academy, where he snuck into the roof just as Naruto barged into the same room just in time to sit down before Irika came in and ordered everyone to be silent before he went through the list of teams. Team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki, started Irika, getting Jin and Naruto's attention. Sasuke Uchiha. The teacher continued, making Jin nod in understanding while Naruto growled to himself slightly, his uncle beating, not voicing his irritation to his superiors like he would normally, literally. And Hinata Hyuga, finished Irika, making the shy, pale-eyed girl's eyes widen in shock and slight joy at being on the same team as he crushed, while all the fangirls in the room shouted at how they wanted to be with their Sasuke-kun, before Irika stated up again. Your senses will be Kakashi Hatake and Jin Uzumaki, he added, making everyone's eyes widen, even Naruto's. Jinajizan took up my mom's last name? Why? Is it to protect me from dad's enemies on the field? Or was it to be able to keep calling me his nephew? Thought Naruto to himself while everyone in the class stared at him wondering when he got family, especially a certain duck-butt-headed Uchiha. Moving back on track, Team 8 is Shino Aburame, Kiba Inuzuka and Sakura Haruno. Your Jonin sensei is Kurenai Yuhi, stated Irika, getting a protest from the mentioned pink-headed genin to be, shut up, these teams are made by the Hokage himself. If you have a problem with it, then suck it up, he shouted at the top of his lungs, making all of his students shy away from wandering him anymore as he got ready to finish up while Naruto smirked. Man, now I am glad that Jinajisen opened my eyes to that stuff. Sakura isn't as good as I thought she was, thought Naruto to himself, rubbing his head from the phantom pain caused by his uncle literally beating sense into him, probably fixing something in his brain that Sakura or one of the villagers caused. Now, since Team 9 is already in circulation, Team 10 will be composed of Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akimichi, and Shikamaru Nara. Your Jonin sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi, stated Irika before Ino looked like she was going to say something before she suddenly freezes up and fell over, Naruto picking his left ear with his left pinky. Stay quiet. Irika-sensei already said that arguing is going against Hokage-jichi, sighed Naruto, his eyes serious. And what would you know, Dobe? I bet you and that relative of yours are just as weak and dumb as each other, stated Sasuke, making Irika start to tell him to quiet up before said Uchiha was pinned to the wall by two glowing gold chains that shot out of Naruto's back, ripping through his jumpsuit's shirt and making holes in Sasuke's shirt.
Sasuke-kun.
Let him go, Naruto Baka, shouted Sakura before a third chain shot out of Naruto's back and wrapped around her throat before the three chains brought the two closer to Naruto's face, showing the two how his eyes were red with slitted pupils. Shut up, Sasuke. I won't allow you to mock the only family I have. And Sakura, I've realized that you aren't what I thought you were, so from now on, I'm not having any of your shit, growled Naruto, his poison cloak starting to form again. Naruto, shouted Irika, making Naruto's eyes widen as they returned to their natural blue state as his poison cloak faded away. Naruto, drop them, Irika demanded, making Naruto sigh and nod before he retracted his chains back into his back before the reality of what he did just hit him. What the hell was that? I made chains out of my back, shouted Naruto, making Jin chuckle. I should have expected him to gain that. His mother did have it after all. I wonder, was his bloodline stopping him from using the adamantine sealing chains? I mean, it is corrosive, but could it destroy even those chains before they come out? Asked Jin to himself as he watched the event through a hole in the roof which was conveniently placed over Naruto. Or was it Kurama who awakened it as an alternative for Naruto to use, so he wouldn't be weak? So many questions. He thought to himself as slowly but surely, teams started moving out with their team sensei. Last time. What the hell was that? I made chains out of my back, shouted Naruto, making Jin chuckle. I should have expected him to gain that. His mother did have it after all. I wonder, was his bloodline stopping him from using the adamantine sealing chains? I mean, it is corrosive, but could it destroy even those chains before they come out? Asked Jin to himself as he watched the event through a hole in the roof which was conveniently placed over Naruto. Or was it Kurama who awakened it as an alternative for Naruto to use, so he wouldn't be weak? So many questions. He thought to himself as slowly but surely, teams started moving out with their team sensei. Now. Where is he? Shouted Naruto, losing control of his emotions for a second, making a golden glow escape his shoulder blades before it faded as the hyperactive blonde took a deep breath. And maybe he has something important to do? Suggested Hinata shyly, making Naruto nod. Alright. Thanks, Hinata. Hey, you have a bloodline, right? What is it? Asked Naruto, deciding to pass the time by learning about the only teammate he could get anything out of. T the Bibia Kugan. It allows the user to have a T360 degree view on their surroundings and the user can see to the opponent's C chakra, explained Hinata shyly, poking her fingers together. So you're the tracker of the team. Sasuke team is probably the mid to far range attacker, and I'm the close to mid-range attacker who is used for infiltration, information gathering, and seduction. Analyzed Naruto, making Hinata and Sasuke stare at him like he grew a second head. What? Jinajisen is a slave driver. Made me read every book he could get me to about ninja strategies. He stated, making Sasuke look away before a swirl of poison appeared in the middle of the room, which dissipated to reveal Jin. Sorry I'm late. I had to pry Kakashi away from the memorial stone and Ika, sighed Jin as he rubbed the back of his head slightly. Please meet us on the roof, we will introduce ourselves. he requested as he disappeared in a swirl of poison again, making Sasuke and Hinata walked out of the room and towards the stairs while Naruto, being the unorthodox brat he was, decided to climb up out of the window and climb onto the roof before Hinata and Sasuke got up and sat down next to Naruto. Alright, since Kakashi isn't here, I will start the introductions. They will consist of your name, likes, dislikes, and dreams. Here I go. I am Jin Uzumaki. My likes include Naruto, Kurama, my summons, my brother, and his wife. My dislikes include a large percent of Konoha's population, murderers, rapists, corrupt businessmen, and those who use others for their own means. My dream for the future is to live to see Naruto become Hokage, see a new generation of Konoha ninja, and help bring peace to the shinobi world. Stated Jin, making all three genin stare at him with different emotions on his face. For Naruto and Hinata it was awe, but for Sasuke it was skepticism. Now, you start Naruto. Jin stated, making Naruto nod. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. My likes include Hokagejiji, Jinajisen summons, ramen, the Ichiraku ramen stand owners, and Irika sensei. My dislikes are almost the same as Jinajisen's, not including the Konoha population but including people who cannot see the difference between a scroll and the kunai sealed within. My dreams for the future are to become a Hokage that surpasses all the previous ones, create an era of peace, make my parents proud, and to create peace between humans and 9 certain individuals. Stated Naruto, making Sasuke scoff at the idea at most of those dreams besides the last one, which gained the combined interest of Jin, Hinata, Sasuke, Kakashi, who had just appeared, and Kurama himself, making the same though go through their heads. Who are these 9 individuals?
And Naruto?
Who are you talking about? Asked Hinata. No one expected the next phrase to come out of Naruto's mouth, not even Jin. The 9-tailed beasts, stated Naruto, making everyone stare at him in shock. What? Shouted Kakashi, Hinata, and Sasuke in shock, while Jin's face turned into a smile, as Kurama felt a slight form of respect for his container grow inside of him, only enough for him to remember the name of Naruto, but respect nonetheless. Yes, Jinajisen told me about his encounter with one of the 9-tailed beasts, about how they managed to hold a decent conversation. That made me realize that they aren't just mindless beasts or tools of war to be sealed inside of people. They are living beings, stated Naruto, as a small layer of red chakra formed over his body before it shot into Jin's stomach as the adult's eyes turned red and slitted. Ha! I guess this will have to do.
Ayu, humans.
Greeted Jin in a slightly demonic voice as he smirked, showing that he had grown fangs, while Kakashi brought out a kunai. Now, none of that. Even if I wanted to hurt you, I can't. I have no idea how to manipulate poison chakra. Let me introduce myself to you. I am the mighty 9-tailed fox, Kyuubi, boss summon of the demon fox contract. I have no likes and my dislikes are most of your species, the Shinigami and Shikaku. I have no dreams for the future, stated the possessed Jin before the red chakra left his body and re-entered Naruto. I guess I have no choice. I am the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, sighed Naruto, making Sasuke and Hinata stare at him in shock. Why did you have to screw me over, Kyuubi? Naruto asked himself as he closed his eyes and looked at the ground while Jin and Kakashi studied Hinata and Sasuke, who were staring at Naruto last time. Ha! I guess this will have to do.
Ayu, humans.
Greeted Jin in a slightly demonic voice as he smirked, showing that he had grown fangs, while Kakashi brought out a kunai. Now, none of that. Even if I wanted to hurt you, I can't. I have no idea how to manipulate poison chakra. Let me introduce myself to you. I am the mighty 9-tailed fox, Kyuubi, boss summon of the demon fox contract. I have no likes and my dislikes are most of your species, the Shinigami and Shikaku. I have no dreams for the future, stated the possessed Jin before the red chakra left his body and re-entered Naruto. I guess I have no choice. I am the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, sighed Naruto, making Sasuke and Hinata stare at him in shock. Why did you have to screw me over, Kyuubi? Naruto asked himself as he closed his eyes and looked at the ground while Jin and Kakashi studied Hinata and Sasuke, who were staring at Naruto. Now. So, Sasuke, Hinata, now that you know about Naruto's darkest secret, what do you think? Is he still the Naruto you know, or is he the Kyuubi? Asked Jin, staring at Sasuke and Hinata, his hand discreetly going for a kunai just in case either of the two attack Naruto. Grunted Sasuke as he stared at Naruto. I doubt that the Kyuubi could be as dumb and weak as the Dobe is. He stated, making Naruto growl and get ready to attack Sasuke, only for Jin to hold him back. Naruto, think about what he said for a second, advised Jin, making Naruto calm down before he realized what Sasuke said meant. Hey Sasuke, I'll take the insult in stride, smirked Naruto, smiling his face-splitting smile while Sasuke smirked, only slightly. I also believe that en Naruto Kekkuen is en not the Keikyubi, mumbled Hinata shyly, poking her fingers together, making Naruto smile at her, making the Hyuga blush. Thank you, Hinata, cheered Naruto before Kakashi coughed slightly, making the three genin look at him. If we could get back to our introductions now? He requested, making it sound slightly like a question, making the three genin nod as they continued their introductions while Jin talked with Naruto secretly. Naruto, I think we'll need to talk with Kyuubi later. It'd be best if we start some form of respect bond between you both, stated Jin, making Naruto nod. Yeah, and I also want to meet the furball in person, especially after that stunt he just pulled, nodded Naruto while he heard said furball growl in the back of his mind. Good, you're all unique and have your own ideas. We'll have our first mission tomorrow, stated Kakashi, simply grabbing Naruto's attention. What kind of mission will it be? Asked Naruto, excited. A survival exercise, stated Jin, simply already knowing Kakashi's test. What is it about? Asked Naruto, having a bad feeling which only increased and spread on to Hinata as Kakashi and Jin smirked and started chuckling to themselves. What is so funny about that Q question? Asked Hinata, confused and slightly afraid. If we tell you the answer, you're not going to like it, smirked Jin, chuckling slightly while Kakashi put on an intimidating face. Of the 27 graduates, only 9 of them will be accepted as genin. The other 18 will be sent back to the academy. In other words, this is a make it or break it, pass, fail test. And the chance that you will fail is at least 66%. Stated Kakashi, seriously, making Naruto and Hinata pale slightly while Sasuke showed no emotion on his face. I told you that you wouldn't like it, didn't I? Asked Jin playfully. To then what was the G graduation T-test for? Asked Hinata shyly. Oh, that was to round up the hopeless little shits who could never become ninja as they are and get them away from the students who might become ninja. Smirked Jin before a Chunin appeared next to him with a file. Here you go, Jin. The student files you requested on your students, stated the Chunin before he disappeared in a puff of smoke. I'll be reading these thoroughly later. For now, I'll read a little bit about your jutsu, mumbled Jin as he skimmed through Naruto's file before coming across the note about his sexy jutsu. Naruto, we are going to have to talk about this sexy jutsu of yours, he growled, making Naruto chuckle awkwardly. Actually, screw it, we're doing it now, he stated as his hand started glowing purple before he slammed his palm into Naruto's forehead, knocking out the developing teen before he disappeared with the flying thunder god jutsu, not noticing the shocked and confused look on Hinata's face, appearing back in Naruto's apartment where he hit himself in the head with his palm, making him pass out before awakening in a sewer of some kind. Where the hell are we? Asked Naruto, who was also in the sewer for some reason. Poison style can do a lot of mimicry if the user knows how to do it. What I just did mimicked one of the Yamanaka clan's jutsu, allowing us to go into a place called your mindscape, stated Jin as he jumped up onto his feet. I actually used it on your mother to talk to the Kyuubi, he mumbled as he followed a trail of water, Naruto following behind him, not noticing the shadow tailing him. Well, if it isn't Jin and my jailer, smirked Kurama as the two neared his cage. Hello, Kyuubi. Nice to see you again. After how long was it again? 15 years, asked Jin, smirking. Yes, 15 years of being sealed inside your extended family. So, you think that brat can actually defeat me one day? Look at him, he's shaking like a leaf, smirked Kurama, especially after he noticed Naruto's legs shaking. Hey, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. You do well to remember that, you damned furball, shouted Naruto as he stopped shaking while he glared at the massive fox who was giving him an amused look. Oh? And what would you do otherwise? Asked Kurama, amused. I'd kick your furry ass, shouted Naruto, and a random female voice making Jean pale and Naruto look around freaked out. Kurama, did you hear that? Asked Jean, freaked out, not even bothering to hide he knew the tailed beast's name from Naruto. Ha! Yes, I did. Sadly, I've been stuck with this ever since that brat decided to make that ridiculous jutsu of his, growled Kurama, making Jin's eyes widen before he sighed. Did Naruto accidentally use the Uzumaki-style transformation jutsu for his sexy jutsu? Asked Jean, making Kurama nod, getting an over-exaggerated sigh from the uncle. Okay. You can come on out now. I know that you are here and it's best to get this over with. Jean sighed, making the female voice that spoke in sync with Naruto earlier giggle, before what appeared to be a female version of Naruto jumped up onto Kurama's head, getting a growl from the fox. What the hell? Shouted Naruto in shock as he stared at his female counterpart. Hello me, greeted the female Naruto, giving Naruto a taste of his own smile. Ha! The Uzumaki-style transformation jutsu is usually saved until someone becomes of a mature age, as young use can lead to the development of a secondary personality under the highly specific and unusual conditions that the personality is formed by a highly used form where the user changes their personality. From what I read of your sexy jutsu, Naruto, you act more seductive while using it, so that gave shape to this female you. So if she ever got her own form, don't be surprised if she flirted with someone of your age. Sighed Jean, conveniently explaining how this whole fanfiction bullshit came about. Call me Naruko. I like that name. Does it sound good, brother, uncle? Smirked the female Naruto, making a name for herself, making sighs come out of Kurama and Jean while Naruto stared at her, jaw-dropping. What the actual fuck? Shouted Naruto in shock before both Jean and Naruko hit him over the head. Nos wedding. They both shouted before they blinked, realizing that they said the same thing. Oh my, you are more responsible, aren't you? Asked Jean, trying his best to hide a smirk. I guess, shrugged Naruko, giggling slightly. Shinigami, if you are listening, I so want to kill you right now, growled Kurama, annoyed. As if you could, whispered a voice in Kurama's ear, making the fox growl last time. What the actual fuck? Shouted Naruto in shock before both Jean and Naruko hit him over the head. Nos wedding. They both shouted before they blinked, realizing that they said the same thing. Oh my, you are more responsible, aren't you? Asked Jean, trying his best to hide a smirk. I guess, shrugged Naruko, giggling slightly. Shinigami, if you are listening, I so want to kill you right now, growled Kurama, annoyed. As if you could, whispered a voice in Kurama's ear, making the fox growl. Now. All right, Naruto, I want you to use half of your chakra and create one clone, stated Jean, making Naruto nod hesitantly, making the one clone successfully. What is this for? Asked Naruto, confused and slightly worried about being late to Kakashi's test. I want to try an old seal that my brother theorized on with Naruto. So, put your hand on your clone's shoulder and Naruko, I want you to flow through Naruto's chakra into the clone's body, stated Jean as he started drawing up a seal on Naruto's clone's stomach. Not that I'm questioning Dad's work, but what was the seal originally for? Asked Naruto as he shivered slightly as Naruto's conscious seemed to move through his arm and into the clone, which was covered in a puff of smoke before it revealed Naruto smiling while wearing the exact same outfit as Naruto. Well, your father and his wife started designing this seal once my brother and I, like idiots, borrowed the forbidden scroll and read up on the reanimation jutsu. In theory, This seal should allow Naruto's clone body to turn into a real one. Or it just might dispel the jutsu. Mumbled Jean as he put his left arm into a one-handed seal before flaring his purified chakra from his arm, making Naruto shiver before she poked herself lightly with a kunai, making a bit of blood come out as the sharp blade connected with her skin. Wow, this is cool, smirked Naruto as she jumped around a little before Jean wrapped her up in his poison chakra, before lifting her shirt slightly, so he could place another seal on her, Uncle? What was that for? She asked confused as Jean let her go. The seal is experimental, and honestly, I don't trust it to maintain itself off of your new chakra coils, so I've linked the seal to another seal I placed on Naruto, meaning that now he funds your seal. So if he runs out of chakra, then you start to fund it with your chakra until you run out and dispel. Stated Jean before he stretched out. Alright, let's get you to where the test is. He yawned as he grabbed his nephew and niece before flashing over to the training field that Team 7 were to use for training in the future. Given they pass, of course. Grunted Sasuke, intrigued as Jean appeared at the training ground in a flash of purple, holding two struggling blondes before the older blonde dropped them.
Jijin Sensei.
Who is that? Asked Hinata politely as she looked at Naruto confused. And why does she look alike an Naruto? She added, making Sasuke look between the two to notice that Hinata was right.
I'm Naruto.
Naruto's sister. Smiled Naruto nicely while Hinata activated her Byakugan, allowing her to see Naruto and Naruto's chakra networks to see that they had similar yet different chakra. Naruto had about half the amount of chakra that Naruto had, still a high Jonin amount of chakra, but half of Naruto's reserves all the same. Dobe, are you really as stupid as to think we'd fall for a clone in that sexy jutsu of yours? Asked Sasuke, annoyed at what he thought was a joke. Actually, Sasuke, Naruto's sexy jutsu is just the Uzumaki style transformation jutsu. Smirked Naruto, making Hinata and Sasuke confused. Uzumaki-esque style? Asked Hinata, voicing her confusion. Yeah, the Uzumaki clan were amazing from what I heard. They had all these cool seals and special variations of jutsu that were illusion, but the Uzumaki turned them physical. Smirked Naruto, happy about being able to talk about one of his almost dead clans. Were? Asked Sasuke, focusing on that specific word. I'll explain this. You see, the Uzumaki clan were renowned for their sealing jutsu, some of which they shared with Konoha. But when it was clear that a third ninja world war was going to happen, Konoha's enemies decided to take down the Uzumaki clan and the land of whirlpools before the war started. Stated Jean sadly, not like having to retell the destruction of his sister-in-law's clan, and luckily making it seem it was his clan that was destroyed at the same time. Alright, now that we got this history out of the way, how's about we get the test started? Asked Kakashi's voice as he was suddenly and unexplainably behind Sasuke and Hinata, a few leaves falling to the ground as he finished talking before he walked over to one of the 3 posts and put a clock on it. Your assignment is to get these bells off of Kakashi. Smirked Jean as he jingled some bells before throwing them towards Kakashi, who hung them off of his flak jacket. And, if you can't get them by noon, you go without lunch, stated Kakashi simply, smirking underneath his mask. You'll be tied to those posts and watch while I eat my lunch in front of you. So that's why he told us not to eat breakfast, thought Sasuke to himself, noticing that Naruto, and Hinata didn't seem hungry at all. Glad I made you eat breakfast now, bro? Smirked Naruto, making Naruto annoyed. Yeah, you were right, grumbled Naruto, making Jean chuckle while Naruto giggled slightly at her brother's expense. Wait a minute, there's only 3 of them. How come there's only 2 bells? Asked Naruto, confused, making Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke notice that, indeed, there were only 2 bells. Hehe. Well, that way, at least one of you will end up tied to the post and ultimately disqualified for failing to complete the mission. That one goes back to the academy. Then again, all 3 of you could flunk out too. You can use any weapon, including shuriken. If you aren't prepared to kill me, you won't be able to take the bells, explained Kakashi. But Kakashi-sensei. Why you might get hurt, mumbled Hinata shyly, poking her fingers together. When I say start, you can begin, stated Kakashi, effectively ignoring Hinata's question. Get ready. He started making all four teens crouch down slightly. Start. Kakashi shouted, making Naruto and Naruto jump to the field of trees to the left while Hinata and Sasuke jumped towards the field of trees to the right. But, Jin, are you sure it's a wise idea to allow that Naruto to participate? I believe that she won't be able to do much of anything, Kakashi stated, voicing his opinion about Naruto. I assure you, Kakashi, anything that Naruto knows, Naruto knows. Only she knows how to use it properly, smirked Jin before he used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to teleport away from the field and back to his secret house outside of Konoha, where he opened a secret chest containing a mask, a straw hat, and a black coat with red clouds on it. Let me get my stuff on, partner, Jin stated simply as he took of his Jonin flak jacket and Konoha headband in favor of putting on his cloak and mask. Let us go. Pain will not like to be kept waiting for long, stated an almost emotionless voice as Itachi Uchiha, killer of almost the entire Uchiha clan and missing Nin, appeared in a swirl of leaves, in a similar cloak. Tell me about it. Not to mention that Conan is a bitch and Hayden annoys the fuck out of me, sighed Jin, his voice deeper and demonic because of a seal placed on the mask. The two disappeared in a flash of purple last time. Let us go. Pain will not like to be kept waiting for long, stated an almost emotionless voice as Itachi Uchiha, killer of almost the entire Uchiha clan and missing Nin, appeared in a swirl of leaves, in a similar cloak. Tell me about it. Not to mention that Conan is a bitch and Hayden annoys the fuck out of me, sighed Jin, his voice deeper and demonic because of a seal placed on the mask. The two disappeared in a flash of purple. Now, while Jin was doing his own things with Akatsuki, Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke were hiding in the greenery of the training field where their test to get bells off of Kakashi was taking place. Naruto, on the other hand, was right out in the open, a smirk on his face. You and me, right here, fair and square, shouted Naruto, making Sasuke stare at him like he was suicidal from his hiding place, while Naruto smirked and Hinata grew worried for her crush. You know, compared to the others, you're a little bit weird, stated Kakashi simply as he stared at Naruto bored. Oh yeah? The only thing weird around here is your haircut, shouted Naruto as he charged at Kakashi in what seemed to Sasuke and Hinata as anger, but to Kakashi and Naruto looked like some kind of strategy, however weird it was. When Naruto neared Kakashi, Jonin slipped his hand into his kunai pouch, causing Naruto to stop his charge and jump back before Kakashi pulled out a book titled Aika. What the? Naruto asked in confusion as he and his fellow genin blinked in surprise, Sasuke doing it for about a minute less than Naruto and Hinata. Come on, make your move, smirked Kakashi as he started to read his book to himself. I mean, why are you reading that book? Asked Naruto, confused and slightly insulted. Why? Asked Kakashi in return, to find out what happens in the story, of course. He answered, sounding bored, don't let it bother you. With your weak attacks, it doesn't really matter if I'm reading or whatever, stated Kakashi, simply making Naruto growl while clenching his fists before he took a deep breath and calmed down before charging at Kakashi again, trying his best to push Kakashi into a specific area of the training field while Naruto started making hand signs before Kakashi disappeared out of the way of one of Naruto's punches. Huh? Asked Naruto, and Naruto confused before Naruto noticed Kakashi kneeling down behind Naruto with his hands in the tiger hand seal. Don't let your enemy get behind you all the time, stated Kakashi, simply making Naruto turn towards him in shock.
Naruto-kun.
Get out of there, shouted Hinata in a state of panic before she realized what she did and started running from her old hiding place. Too late, stated Kakashi as an evil shine came into his only shown eye, Leaf Village secret finger jutsu. 1,000 years of death, he shouted as he thrusted his hands towards an area where no one should thrust their hands, only for Naruto to turn into a log. Leaf Village secret finger jutsu. 1,000 years of toxic death, shouted Naruto from behind Kakashi as he thrusted his fingers up the Jonin's ass, making him fly into the sky, being pushed away by the poison chakra that Naruto used, making the Jonin land just where Naruto and Naruto wanted. "Naruto now!" shouted Naruto as he landed on Kakashi's left while Naruto landed on his right. "Poison style. Paralysis containment field," shouted the twins as they created a dome of poison chakra around Kakashi, who got back up, rubbing his butt because of the pain he just felt. "Hinata! Sasuke! Get the bells now!" shouted Naruto, her voice strained as Kakashi tried to break out of the dome, making the two-mentioned genin rush out of the forest before Naruto made an opening in the dome, allowing Sasuke and Hinata in so that they could see what was going on inside of the dome. Kakashi was wrapped up in what seemed to be chains of poison that were trying to stop him from moving much, allowing the two to swipe the bells off of him before running out of the dome just as the hole closed before Kakashi started moving again, having broken free of the chains holding him down before he kicked the dome, making it explode, blowing both Naruto and Naruto again, both of who started convulsing from the overuse of their poison chakras before Naruto dispelled, going back into Naruto's mind to heal before Naruto got back up shakily onto his feet. "Hee, how was that?" asked Naruto, smirking as he started losing his balance from how weak he was feeling before Hinata caught him and stopped him from falling, making her blush as she realized how close she was to Naruto. I'd say that it was an impressive strategy," stated Kakashi simply as he started moving his arm around in its socket, noticing that it felt oddly heavy and stiff. "But I have to point out that you don't have a bell, Naruto. Only Hinata and Sasuke do," pointed out Kakashi, making Naruto shrug. "Jinajizan drilled a message into me. Those in the ninja world who break the rules are scum. But those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum," stated Naruto simply as he put his hands in the pockets of his pants, smirking as Hinata and Sasuke looked at their bells before Hinata handed her bell to Naruto. "Hinata?" the blonde asked, confused as he looked at the Hyuga, confused. "Why, you deserve it MRT that I do, and Naruto-kun. I didn't do anything," stuttered Hinata before she caught a bell that Sasuke threw at her. You two losers should continue on. Another year in that academy won't do anything for me. I'll just be Rookie of the Year again," stated Sasuke coldly, but Naruto noticed the slight smirk on the Uchiha's face. "Congratulations. You all pass," smirked a voice as Jin appeared in a purple flash of light, having finished everything to do with the Akatsuki and having taken off his Akatsuki gear. "Where were you? I almost had Kakashi's hand up my ass," shouted Naruto in rage. "I'm sorry. I had something important I needed to do," apologized Jin awkwardly before he noticed a purple strand in Naruto's hair. "You and Naruto used that jutsu I told you about, didn't you?" he asked sternly, making Naruto chuckle awkwardly. "Yeah, we did. We needed to get the bells off of Kakashi-sensei," he muttered awkwardly, making Jin sigh. "Naruto, I warned you against using it because it's one of the jutsu that will drain your poison chakra, the fastest if unexperienced, and will lead you to becoming the same as me, unable to use normal chakra," sighed Jin before he addressed Sasuke and Hinata. "You two are to report here at 7 tomorrow morning for training and the missions. On this team I will be working on your combination jutsu, attitudes and physical strength. Kakashi will work on your chakra control, genjutsu and ninjutsu. If you are late, I will make you do double the work with half the break time. Am I understood?" he growled, acting like a drill sergeant from movies, hard, commanding, and someone not to mess with, making the two bloodline users nod. "And you two should get ready. Jinajizan doesn't know the meaning of restraint when it comes to training. We'll be driven into the ground multiple times," muttered Naruto, shaking slightly as he remembered the training session he had with Jin last night, which resulted in Naruto breaking multiple bones. Thankfully for him, Kurama healed all the damage during the night. "What Naruto said," smirked Jin as he grabbed Naruto by the shoulder and used the Flying Thunder God jutsu to warp home before starting on making Naruto's body. Again. Only this time with a better seal keeping her body stable. Make number 1 teams. The teams will be as follows. Started Hiruzen Sarutobi, 3rd Hokage of the village hidden in the leaf, as he listed the teams before getting to the only teams that readers actually care about. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno led by Kakashi Hatake. Team 8 will be Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Aburame led by Kurenai Yuki. And finally, Team 10 will be Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara and Choji Akimichi led by Asuma Sarutobi. Does anyone have any objections to the teams? The third Hokage asked as he finished listing the teams and looking at the Jonin instructors gathered in front of him before his door was kicked open.
Ido!
Shouted Jin as he stomped into the office, making several Jonin stare at him. My main objection is to Teams 7 and 8's Kunoichi, he shouted, making Kurenai and Kakashi stare at him amused. I find nothing wrong with the teams, stated Kurenai before she was met by a heated glare by Jin. I'm sorry, are you the S-ranked ninja with a flee-on-sight order in 3 countries because of the bloodshed he and his brother did in the Third Ninja World War? Asked Jin sarcastically, making Kurenai shut up. Sakura Haruno is a fangirl. Putting her with Sasuke will make her want to do nothing but her slacking off and refusing to train so she looks the best in front of Sasuke. While Hinata, she has confidence problems. Putting her along with Kiba and Shino will not go good, as from what I know. Shino is a silent guy while Kiba is too loud. Neither of the two will help her with her confidence, stated Jin, explaining his reasons for his objection. Then what do you suggest, Jin? Asked Hiruzen, sighing to himself while a few of the Jonin stared at Jin in shock. Knowing his name and his nickname given to him in the Third Shinobi World War by Kiri, otherwise known as the village hidden in the mist, Jin Namikaze, the Dragon Flash. Omake number 2 training. Alright, you 3 will be facing MY training regimen. Smirked Jin, making Naruto sigh, knowing that Hinata and Sasuke were in for pain. HN, I bet it won't be that hard. Grunted Sasuke, bored, before he jumped back as a whip hit him on the left shoulder, making the Uchiha notice the evil smile on his sensei's face. And just for that, while you do your laps, I will be whipping you with this whip. Smirked Jin, the image of the devil, or in Sasuke's case Itachi, appearing behind him, having a smile filled with the same evil as Jin's smile.
Jijin sensei.
How many laps are we doing? Asked Hinata shyly while noticing the dark aura growing around Jin. Well, since this will be the training regimen that I do every day, I'd say about 10 laps around Konoha with weights on. Smirked Jin, making Naruto sign, already knowing how futile it would be to argue against his evil teacher of an uncle. Omake number 3 food habits. I wonder what I should eat, mumbled Naruto to himself as he prepared himself for the genin test to decide if he would get his headband or not. Eat something healthy, not ramen, shouted 3 voices inside of Naruto's head, the voices belonging to Kurama, Kushina and Minato, the last 2 of which having sealed their chakra inside of Naruto to help him when he'd need them. Huh? Asked Naruto, confused as he looked around his apartment before shrugging. Probably nothing. I think I'll have instant ramen for breakfast. He nodded to himself. No, shouted the 2 parents to themselves, being ignored by their son, while Kurama, on the other hand, while also being ignored by Naruto, was going on a rant. God fucking damn it. Why did I have to be sealed inside of a ramen-obsessed idiot? What fucking torture is this? Minato Namikaze, you are the most demonic human I have ever fucking known, ranted Kurama as he kept swearing Minato and the Shinigami for what seemed to be hours. Omake number 4 reason Jin could make Naruto a body. Alright, time to test out my new seal, nodded Jin to himself as he stared at the sample he took from a dead body he found before using a shadow clone as the sacrifice for the reanimation jutsu to revive the ninja whose skin sample he took, making what seemed to be a Kiri ninja. What the? How am I alive? The last thing I remember is that Kakuzu guy and then nothing, mumbled the ninja to himself as he looked over his body. And what is up with my body? He asked absent-mindedly before he noticed Jin. He started screaming before Jin slapped a seal on his forehead, making him shut up as the cracks on his body started to release steam as they closed before the ninja started twisting his body in strange directions before growling in a primal manner as he ran away, his skin quickly decaying. I do believe I just created a zombie, I'll have to kill it now, sighed Jean as he teleported to the flying thunder god seal. He secretly put on the newly created zombie's body before slamming a Rasengan onto its head, killing it before he used his poison chakra to dissolve the body. That was a failed attempt to revive my brother and his wife. He sighed before he went on his merry way, not noticing as a certain snake summoner saw what he did and chuckled to himself. Omake number 5 really? Cool. Chuckled a certain snake summoner as he walked up to Team 7 disguised as Kakashi before he saw about 100 kunai and shuriken flying at him, making him dodge them all. Do you have a reason for your attack on me? Asked Orochimaru in Kakashi's voice before he noticed Kakashi and Jean glaring at him, making him pale slightly before he noticed the evil smirks on Sasuke, Naruto and Naruto's faces as the last two started going through hand signs while Sasuke activated his Sharingan. Poison style. Poison flood, shouted the two Uzumaki as they spewed out a flood of poison from their mouths which quickly wrapped around Orochimaru's ankles before Sasuke finished a stream of hand signs and took in a large amount of air, making Orochimaru prepare to replace himself with a log before he noticed Hinata riding on Jean before hitting his chakra points, stopping him from using his chakra just as Sasuke fired his massive fireball, which lit the poison on fire, making it explode and roast Orochimaru, who snuck away to his own village as Jean congratulated his students while Kakashi smirked. How was your attempt at giving Sasuke Uchiha the cursed seal? Asked Kabuto Yakushi, Orochimaru's right-hand man and best medic. I will never mention it again, hissed Orochimaru as he shed his burnt skin before going into his lab and closing the doors behind him, leaving a confused Kabuto before he noticed a seal on the back of Orochimaru's shed skin before Jean appeared in a flash of purple, a cloak of poison chakra staring to form around his body, while he smirked viciously as his cloak formed into the shape of a dragon, while Kabuto knew that he was about to see why Jean was fear as the dragon flash of Konoha last time. And you two should get ready. Jean Ajisen doesn't know the meaning of restraint when it comes to training. Will be driven into the ground multiple times, muttered Naruto, shaking slightly as he remembered the training session he had with Jean last night, which resulted in Naruto breaking multiple bones. Thankfully for him, Kurama healed all the damage during the night. What Naruto said, smirked Jean as he grabbed Naruto by the shoulder and used the flying thunder god jutsu to warp home before starting on making Naruto's body. Again. Only this time with a better seal keeping her body stable. Now, we tune in as Sasuke, Hinata, Naruto and Naruto are hiding in trees, waiting for their target to come out into the open so that they could spring their trap. This mission was of the utmost importance. Naruto, the target is going in your direction, stated Jean through a communication headset. Got it, Jean-sensei. I see the target coming, stated Naruto as he waited as the shadow of an animal ran by him before he looked ahead of him, connecting eyes with Naruto before the two jumped out of the bush, making their target turn towards them and hiss before running away, making the two Uzumaki chase after it, secretly guiding it to their target location. Sasuke, prepare the jutsu, ordered Kakashi, making Sasuke nod in his hiding spot in the bushes that Naruto and Naruto were leading their target towards. Sasuke, now! Shouted Naruto as the animal she and her brother was chasing leaped forwards. Temple of Nirvana Jutsu, called out Sasuke as feathers surrounded the head of their target before it fell asleep. The target is asleep. Repeat, the target is asleep, stated Sasuke over the communications as he inspected their target, which was a brown cat with a red ribbon tied around its left ear. Can you verify ribbon on left ear? Asked Kakashi back to his student. Affirmative. We got a positive ID, sighed Sasuke bored before he noticed Jean in the bushes. That's good. We finally got Tora, smirked Jean as he picked up the sleeping cat. How was blissfully unaware of anything before Team 7 jumped back to the Hokage Tower to report their success, where they waited for the Fire Lord's wife to get there to reclaim her cat, who she started smothering. Ah, my poor little Tora. Mommy was so worried about her naughty little fuzzykins. Yes, exclaimed the Fire Lord's wife before Hinata faked a cough to get her attention. Excuse me, Madam Shirjimmy, I'd recommend that you not smother Tora like that. Cats don't like that, stated Hinata, having worked with Naruto, Naruko, and Jin for so long that she had stopped stuttering. Hinata's suggestion made a light bulb flicker on in Jin's head as he warped away, only to warp back a few moments later with a book. Madam Shirjimi, these are books on how to take care of a cat in such a way that they will enjoy their time, stated Jin as he handed the book to Madame Shirjimi just before she left. Oh, okay. I'll read it so that Tora doesn't run again. She nodded, surprised, as she walked out of the office. Now then, for Team 7's next mission, we have several available tasks, started Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konoha, before Jin interrupted him.
Hokage-sama.
I would like to request a C-rank mission for my team, stated Jin, respectfully, making Hiruzen nod in understanding before he pulled out a mission scroll before tossing it towards Jin, who read it through before handing it to Kakashi. That is the details on your mission. You will be bodyguards on a journey, smirked Hiruzen, making Naruto and Naruko perk up. Really? They both asked excitedly before they noticed a smile starting to form on Jin's mouth, making the twins shut up and straighten up, scared stiff from the sight. Your client should be coming in now, stated Hiruzen as he nodded towards a corner of a room, making Kakashi and Jin realized that an Umbu agent must have gotten their client. What the? A bunch of snot-nosed kids? Asked a male voice from the door as Team 7 turned to face their client, Tazuna, the bridge builder of Wave. Team 7's genin stared at Tazuna before the man took a lot of gulps from a sake bottle he held in his hand as he leaned against the doorway. And you, the little one with the idiotic look on his face, you really expect me to believe you're a ninja? He asked, pointing at the group, making all of them line up and compare heights. Naruto being a head shorter than Sasuke and Naruko while only being a tad taller than Hinata, but still getting the point that Tazuna was insulting him. You know, if it wasn't for Jin Ajisen being here, I would probably show you why it's a bad idea to call me short and stupid looking, growled Naruto, Kurama turning Naruto's eyes red to enhance the effect of the threat. Naruto, don't threaten the client, growled Jin, making Naruto growl as his eyes turned back to their natural blue color. Fine, grumbled Naruto as he turned away from his uncle. I'm Tazuna, a master bridge builder, and I must return to my country. I'm building a bridge there that will change our world, and I expect to get you there safely, even if it means giving up your life, stated Tazuna, making Kakashi smirk slightly behind his mask. Well then, Tazuna, you got the best team. Sasuke is out ninjutsu and genjutsu user. Naruto is our fuinjutsu and scout. Naruko is our seduction and torture mistress, and Hinata is our tracker, healer, and disabler. When working together, they get to about high chunin level, while alone, they are high genin bordering low chunin level. Outside of their specialties, they have similar levels of power, stated Kakashi, making the genin nod towards his assessment of their abilities. They still have a few personality quirks to work out, like Sasuke being emo and Naruto and Naruko still being hyperactive little brats, smirked Jin, making the mentioned genin glare at him secretly, afraid of facing his wrath. All right, team, meet up at the gate to Konoha in 2 hours. Pack for at least a month-long journey. If you have a lot of stuff, ask for help sealing it into a scroll for easy transport. He instructed, making his 4 students nod before they grabbed onto Naruto, who used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to teleport the 4 to Naruto's house before Hinata and Sasuke went to their clan compounds to gather their supplies. 2 hours later, Konoha gates. All right, team, gather around Tazuna. While C-rank missions usually involve taking out bandits if need be, sometimes missions can go south. So we'll need to protect Tazuna up front, instructed Jin, making Team 7 gather around Tazuna while Jin and Kakashi walked ahead of them, walking past 2 puddles before Gozu and Meizu, the demon brothers, missing Nin of Kiri, the village hidden in the mist, came out of the puddle, a chain connected between gauntlets that the 2 brothers wore before they wrapped the chain around Jin and Kakashi, ripping the 2 jonin in half. Jin-sensei, Kakashi-sensei, shouted the remaining members of Team 7 in shock before they shook themselves out of their shock and got ready, Naruko and Naruto running in first. 2 down, 2 up next. smirked Gozu as he and his brother rushed towards the Uzumaki twins before the two jumped over the Chunin before landing on their chain, making the demon brothers fall backwards before the twins jumped away and went through hand signs along with Sasuke. Fire style, fireball jutsu, shouted Sasuke as he fired a fireball twice his size out of his mouth at the demon brothers as Naruto and Naruto finished their hand signs. Wind style, great breakthrough jutsu, the two Uzumaki called out as they both fired massive gusts of wind at Sasuke's fireball, making it grow in size, creating a huge explosion as it collided with the demon brothers. "Did you get them?" asked Tazuna a little scared before Hinata pushed him down as she grabbed the arm of Gozu, who had disconnected his gauntlet from the chain before the fireball landed while Meizu ran towards Tazuna, his gauntlet ready to rip the bridge builder in two before Naruto knocked Gozu away from Hinata before looking at the Hyuga and nodding. "You are within my divination," Hinata shouted, making Meizu swear in his head before Hinata slammed her palm into his shoulder. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 palms, she shouted as she finished her clan jutsu, sending Meizu flying into a try before she turned to where Naruto and Gozu were fighting only to see the blonde female getting stabbed in the arm by Gozu. "A poison? Your gauntlets are covered in poison," asked Naruto calmly, unnerving Gozu and a still conscious Meizu slightly.
Yeah.
"You'll be dead before the day is over," smirked Gozu before he noticed the smirks on Naruto and Naruto's faces. There are two things wrong with that. One, my body is a reinforced clone body. And second, smirked Naruto before purple chakra started to bubble around her body, forming into the shape of a fox around her. "And no, they," started Gozu in fright before Jean came up behind him and knocked him out with a chop to the neck, poison chakra forming around his body as it took the shape of a dragon, with wings and tails included. "The dragon flash of Konoha, Jean Namikaze," stuttered Meizu before he fainted from fright at seeing just who he was messing with. And they didn't even see me," sighed Kakashi a little off-put that the demon brothers ignored him. "Kakashi, that's for later. Now Tazuna, care to explain to my why two Chunin-level ninja were after your head?" growled Jean, anger clear in his voice before he noticed Sasuke and Hinata staring at him shocked. "What?" he asked confused. "Jean Ajisen, that guy called you by your actual name, not Jean Uzumaki," sighed Naruto, making Jean sigh before he and Naruto made their poison chakra cloaks drop before Jean held his hand over his left eye, looking pained for a second before he blinked, going back to normal as he took his hand off of his eye. "Are you okay?" asked Naruto concerned. "Yeah, my eye. It felt like it was burning for a second there. I'm fine now," sighed Jean, breathing a tad bit hard before he gave what Team 7 labeled his "answer me or you die" glare at Tazuna. "Now, again, why were the demon brothers, Chunin-level missing Nin from Kiri after you?" he growled last time. "Jean Ajisen, that guy called you by your actual name, not Jean Uzumaki," sighed Naruto, making Jean sigh before he and Naruto made their poison chakra cloaks drop before Jean held his hand over his left eye, looking pained for a second before he blinked, going back to normal as he took his hand off of his eye. "Are you okay?" asked Naruto concerned. "Yeah, my eye. It felt like it was burning for a second there. I'm fine now," sighed Jean, breathing a tad bit hard before he gave what Team 7 labeled his "answer me or you die" glare at Tazuna. "Now, again, why were the demon brothers, Chunin-level missing Nin from Kiri after you?" he growled. "Now, say, Jean Ajisen, since Sasuke and Hinata know about it, do you think you can tell us about the history of the Namikaze clan?" asked Naruto as Team 7 sat on a boat on the way to Wave, Tazuna's homeland and current slave country to Gato of Gato Shipping, a secret slave, a drug-dealing cooperation who were bleeding Wave dry of all resources and hope and cut the land off from the outside world. "You've been asking me about it forever. I guess I'll give in this once," sighed Jean, making Naruto and Naruto's start to grow slightly wider as they got excited. "Now, where should I start?" he mumbled to himself as he thought of where to start on the Namikaze clan before the idea popped into his head. "All right, I'll start from the beginning. You see, at first the Namikaze clan were a can of civilians, none of us really wanted to be ninja, but during the time of the clan wars we had to fight, and so we did. Sadly, without anything special and going up against the Senju and Uchiha clans mostly, our clan was being quickly extinguished, but then our leader left the clan in the time it needed him most. Started Jin, beginning his long explanation of the Namikaze clan history. But why would he abandon his clan, his family? Asked Naruto, confused and upset with the idea of abandoning your family. No one knows exactly why, but when he came back, everyone of our clan felt an odd power enter their bodies, changing them ever so slightly. This was the beginning of our poison chakra bloodline. The most popular theory people had was that the leader had managed to get the approval of some kind of deity to bless our clan with the power. Answered Jin, piquing Kurama's interest from inside the seal on Naruto. Could it be?
No.
Growled Kurama to himself as a being from the times of the clan wars popped into his mind before he dismissed the idea because of how improbable it seemed. It was with that power that helped them stay alive for long enough for Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha to create Konoha, where they created a small compound just outside the walls. It was in this compound that multiple events happened. It was where my grandfather was born and where the clan met its almost extinction. Jin continued on, piquing Sasuke's interest far more than before. What do you mean, almost extinction? Asked Sasuke, making Jin sigh. It's almost the same that happened with your clan. When my grandfather was 8, my great-grandmother killed the entire clan besides him. When he asked why she did it, she acted insane before trying to attack him before she was forced to flee. My grandfather then dedicated his life to revenge, and he got it in the end. He killed his mother, but not before she told him the truth on why she killed the clan. She killed the entire clan because she hated what they started doing since the beginning of Konoha, breeding with people from bloodline-wielding clans. I have no idea what bloodlines they managed to gain, but my great-grandmother hated that tradition and was completely content with having no children. In actual fact, my grandfather was made by a drunk accident that both of the guilty parties decided to deny any part in. But, back to the story, the reason she killed the entire clan besides him was so that he could change the clan. She knew that no one besides the clan head could change the clan. So, she killed everyone who could oppose her son in creating a far better Namikaze clan. Explained Jin, making all of his genin and Tazuna stare at him in shock at the complex history behind the Namikaze clan, and that's just what he did. He swore that our family would never go back to whoring ourselves out just to make our bloodline arsenal grow. Not that it worked in the first place. A few years later, he had a wife and 2 children, a girl and a boy. His son managed to live a good long life while his daughter, she died in the Second Shinobi World War with no heir. Then, my father married and a few years later had me and Minato. When we were 5, he and our mother died, leaving us as the last 2 Namikaze in existence. He continued, sadly, making Sasuke realize that, like him, Naruto was the last of a clan that was massacred by one of their own. Wow, that's one hell of a story, stated Tazuna, amazed. Yeah, the story of many clans aren't pretty. Much like the Uchiha's cure of hatred or the fact that the last Senju is a gambling-addicted drunk with no form of luck. Sighed Jin, making Sasuke stare at him confused but decided not to bring up the subject. But what was up with you earlier? I mean, you look to be in a bit of pain, asked Tazuna, making everyone on the boat stare at the two. I honestly don't know. I was deactivating my poison cloak before I accidentally let some of my poison chakra into my eye, more than I've normally done. It hurt, like it was trying to change but something was stopping it, sighed Jin as he stared into the water as the ship passed into a wall of mist before he swore. He saw his eyes turn slitted and red, not like a fox's eye, more like a lizard's eye, while 3 comma-like marks with lines going horizontally through them spun around his pupils before he blinked. His eyes returning to normal before he noticed something off with the mist. This mist is far too thick for an area like this. If I had to say, I'd say that someone is artificially creating this mist, he stated, getting a nod from Kakashi. I thought so too. Not only is it thick, but it's full of chakra. Obviously the hidden mist jutsu. Now, what missing Nin know that jutsu? asked Kakashi as he adopted a thinking pose with his left hand holding his covered chin. Zabuza Momochi, demon of the hidden mist. One of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, answered Jin, making Kakashi nod. Yes, this mission is getting worse and worse as time goes on, sighed Kakashi as he pulled out his Ika book before he started to read it while Jin prepared some blood on his hand for when the team made it to land. Hey, if we know that Zabuza is probably going to be attacking us, why don't we surprise him a little? Asked Naruto, smiling the kind of smile he wore when he was about to prank someone while Hinata and Sasuke stared at him curious. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Asked Hinata curious before Naruto whispered his plan into her ear, making Hinata nod before the two used the transformation jutsu to turn into each other, making Jin and Naruto smirk as they looked at Kakashi and Sasuke respectively, making the two sigh before they did the same as Naruto and Hinata in swapping looks with the person of their ranks. This is going to be an interesting try to see what he'll do, smirked Kakashi, while Jin sighed to himself as he continued to read Ika. Just don't try to mock me with what you put under me mask, sighed Jin before he put his book away as the team made it to shore, making Kakashi slam his palm onto the ground, summoning Santo, who since the last time he was summoned has gained a 6th tail and had also grown a bit. Huh? Kakashi? How did you summon me? Asked Santo confused before he noticed that everyone was holding themselves differently and sensed a slight use of chakra from all 6 of them. Ah, I get it. You know an enemy is coming, so you decided to transform into each other to confuse them. He smirked, liking the idea as a kitsune. Yeah, I'm going to need you and Tabi to get to Hokage-sama back in Konoha to request backup. We are going against Zabuza Momochi and whoever else Gato of Gato Shipping decides to hire to kill Tazuna, stated Kakashi as he slammed his palm into the ground again, making a puff of smoke bigger than Santo as a yellow-furred, four-tailed fox appeared out of the smoke, yawning tiredly. What do you want? I was taking a nap, yawned Tabi before Santo hit him over the head with one of his tails. Ow. Wait, you're here to Santo? Tabi asked after rubbing his head gently with one of his tails. Yes, Jin-sama needs out assistance. So we need to go, sighed Santo before he and Tabi sped off back towards Konoha, running on the water as they did. You know, I'm surprised that those two are even related with how they act, sighed Kakashi before he started walking forwards ahead of the group last time. What do you want? I was taking a nap, yawned Tabi before Santo hit him over the head with one of his tails. Ow. Wait, you're here to Santo? Tabi asked after rubbing his head gently with one of his tails. Yes, Jin-sama needs out assistance. So we need to go, sighed Santo before he and Tabi sped off back towards Konoha, running on the water as they did. You know, I'm surprised that those two are even related with how they act, sighed Kakashi before he started walking forwards ahead of the group. Now, we tune in now as the group of disguised shinobi and Tazuna make their way through a forest to make it to Tazuna's house. Kakashi and Jin seem to be showing no signs of observing the surrounding area, despite doing exactly that. Suddenly Naruto threw a kunai at a bunch of bushes, scaring Tazuna slightly from the sudden action, making the bridge builder almost shout at the boy before Kakashi gave him a glare powered up by a genjutsu that Jin put around him before all 12 of the shinobi's eyes widened as most of them hit the deck, Sasuke tackling Tazuna to the ground as a massive sword flew over their heads and embedded itself into a tree before a figure appeared on the handle. This figure was Zabuza Momochi, demon of the hidden mist. Zabuza looked over his shoulder to stare directly at Kakashi and Jin, both of whom realized who he was instantly. Well, if it isn't Zabuza Momochi, missing Nin from the village hidden in the mist, stated Kakashi emotionlessly as he stared up at Zabuza before Naruto tried to rush towards Zabuza, only to be stopped as Kakashi put his hand in front of Naruto's path. You're in the way. Get back, he growled, knowing what was going on. But why? Demanded Naruto to Team 7 and Tazuna, obviously playing the role of a hyperactive knucklehead with no skills and too much bravado. He's not like those other ninja, he's in a whole other league. If he's our opponent, I'll need this, stated Kakashi as both he and Jin raised their hands to their left eyes. In Kakashi's case, he lifted his headband away from his eye, revealing a Sharingan eye while Jin mimicked his action before a cloud of poison wrapped around his body. Turning into the shape of a dragon, this could be treacherous. He stated, "Well, looks like I get to see the Sharingan eye of Kakashi of the Sharingan and the toxic dragon cloak of Jin the Dragon Flash," smirked Zabuza, keeping his eyes on Kakashi. "It's too bad, huh? But you'll have to hand over the old man," he growled out as the three Jonin got caught in a glaring contest. "Now, get into the Manji formation around Tazuna, protect him, and stay out of this battle," shouted Jin, making the four genin nod as they huddled around Tazuna, one on every side of him as the mist around them started getting thicker and thicker. "Enough talking. I need to exterminate the old man. Now," growled Zabuza, causing Tazuna's eyes to widen in fright before Jin and Kakashi jumped in front of their students and client. "So, I'll have to eliminate you both, Kakashi, Jin? So be it," he stated before he used his foot to pull his sword out of the tree and jump away towards a body of water that was conveniently right there, where he adopted a pose with his left arm stretched up as far as it can go while his other hand has a hand sign in front of his chest. "He's going to use it," thought all the shinobi from Konoha as the mist around them got thicker and thicker. "Hidden mist jutsu," shouted Zabuza as the mist around everyone got so thick that only Kakashi and Jin could see in it clearly. While Zabuza seemed to vanish into the mist, 8 points, larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. "Now, which will be my attack point?" asked Zabuza as he lifted off the 8 points in the body that could, if hit, kill a person in that one hit, making a chill go down all the genins and Tazuna's spines before Kakashi and Jin released a massive burst of chakra, blowing away a lot of the mist surrounding them, not noticing that Naruto was under the pressure of a lot of ki, or killing intent, coming from Zabuza. Under that pressure, she grabbed a kunai and slowly started to bring it to her chest, only for Jin to notice this at the last second. "Naruto!" he shouted, snapping his blonde student from her suicide plan. "Calm down. I'll protect you all with my life. I will not allow my comrades to die. Trust me," he stated, his voice full of emotion that to the genin sounded like something they would never expect from him. "I wouldn't be so sure," stated Zabuza's disembodied voice in a tone that told you that the person knew something you didn't before the missing Nin appeared inside of Team 7's Manji formation, making everyone stare at him in shock before Jin and Kakashi rushed faster than most of the watching eyes could see and stabbed Zabuza in the stomach with kunai. Instead of blood, water was pouring down the blade and onto the ground, making Kakashi and Jin take a look behind them as the real Zabuza appeared behind them, just as the Zabuza they stabbed turned into water as the missing Nin swung his massive blade, cutting the two Jonin in half, only for one to turn into poison while the other turned into water. "Don't move," growled Kakashi, as he and Jin held kunai to Zabuza's throat from behind. "Now it's over," stated Jin as his poison chakra disappeared back into his body while Kakashi's left eye twitched in pain last time. "I wouldn't be so sure," stated Zabuza's disembodied voice in a tone that told you that the person knew something you didn't before the missing Nin appeared inside of Team 7's Manji formation, making everyone stare at him in shock before Jin and Kakashi rushed faster than most of the watching eyes could see and stabbed Zabuza in the stomach with kunai. Instead of blood, water was pouring down the blade and onto the ground, making Kakashi and Jin take a look behind them as the real Zabuza appeared behind them, just as the Zabuza they stabbed turned into water as the missing Nin swung his massive blade, cutting the two Jonin in half, only for one to turn into poison while the other turned into water. "Don't move," growled Kakashi, as he and Jin held kunai to Zabuza's throat from behind. "Now it's over," stated Jin as his poison chakra disappeared back into his body while Kakashi's left eye twitched in pain. "Now." Kakashi and Jin held their kunai to Zabuza's throat. The four genin stared at the two Jonin in shock and amazement, which soon turned into confusion and a small amount of fear as the demon of the mist started to chuckle to himself, almost laughing at what the two feared ninja said. Finished? Asked Zabuza, amusement prominent in his voice. You really don't get it, do you? Your technique is nothing but a crass imitation. I'll never be defeated by a mere copycat ninja and his dragon. He continued, making Jin and Kakashi growl in annoyance, mostly Jin since he was called Kakashi's pet. Kakashi copied my water clone jutsu when he made his speech and signaled to you, Jin, to make a poison clone of your own. Very skillfully executed. You made your clones say those words to draw my attention, while you hid in the mist, waiting for me to make my move. He continued more, making Naruto and Naruto start to fall asleep slightly. So what? Asked Jin, growling slightly. Nice try, but I'm not that easy to fool, growled Zabuza as a second Zabuza appeared behind Jin and Kakashi as the one who they were holding at kunai point fell apart, turning into water before Zabuza swung his sword, aiming to decapitate the two jonin, only for them to duck under the sword as it dug into the ground from Zabuza's slight spin, only for the missing Nin to grab the hilt of the sword and slam it into Jin's stomach, making him launch into Kakashi, making the two land close to a body of water, but not into it. Soon enough their bodies were covered in smoke as their transformation jutsu was broken from the hit, revealing that Jin's left eye was purple instead of its usual blue before his pupils started to slit as the purple turned into red. You got us with that, but I won't allow you to get the drop on me again, growled Jin as he pulled out another kunai, his last one having been sent into the lake before he charged towards Zabuza before his vision blacked out as he fell onto his face, unconscious to the world. Jin's vision. When Jin opened his eyes again, he was in a cave of some kind, a cave he had never seen before. Not too long later, a man with dirty blonde hair that went down to the top of his back and the same colored eyes as Naruto walked into the cave. Ancient dragon god, I summon you here, shouted the man as he unleashed his chakra into a seal located on a rock in front of him, which glowed purple. You who have summoned me, what is it that you desire? Asked a booming voice as the rock cracked before shattering, revealing a slitted red eye surrounded by purple scales which seemed to be made of poison. Great dragon god of poison, I Bijin Namikaze have summoned you to ask for your blessings for my clan. We are in the middle of a terrible war between clans. My clan, the Namikaze clan, is stuck in the middle of a battle between the Senju and the Uchiha clans. I ask for your power, not to be the strongest, but to make sure that my clan survives, stated the man, bowing down to the eye as it closed, staying closed for a few minutes before it opened up again, staring directly at the man. Bijin Namikaze, I have judged your reasons for wanting my blessings. I shall give you and your clan my blessing, stated the dragon god as a purple chakra seeped off of his scales, poison chakra to be exact, before it wrapped around Bijin's legs before entering his body, directly into his chakra coils. I have blessed your clan with my poison-style techniques. Use them well, mortal, for they could be your destruction, advised the voice as the eye closed as Bijin smiled while the stone wall that the seal destroyed reformed as the seal was replaced. So we did receive the blessings of a dragon god, muttered Jin to himself as another vision started up. The area around him changed into a desolate land, where the Hokage monument was the only thing that Jin could use to recognize the wasteland as Konoha. Real world. While Jin was having his vision, Naruto and Hinata, who had dropped their transformation jutsu along with Sasuke and Naruto, were fighting off Zabuza's water clones while Kakashi floated inside of the water prison jutsu that Zabuza had managed to capture him inside of. Sasuke and Naruto were talking to each other, trying to think of ideas on how to free Kakashi. Look, Sasuke, I have an idea, but it's a risky one, whispered Naruto to Sasuke, making the Uchiha nod. What is it? Asked Sasuke as he took a glance at Kakashi, who seemed to also be losing air slowly. Well, Jinajizan taught Naruto and I one jutsu that can be used for support. I'll use it to give you my chakra. You unleash the strongest attack you can do at the real Zabuza. When Zabuza uses a clone to get rid of it, I will run through the mist created and stab him in the arm, hopefully releasing Kakashi-sensei, explained Naruto, making Sasuke as Naruto put her arm on his back, using a jutsu known as poison style. Chakra transfer jutsu to give a good amount of her chakra towards Sasuke, whose eyes, unnoticed to everyone, started to change. Now Sasuke, Naruto shouted, making Sasuke recoil from the blonde shouting directly into his ears before he shook it off and used the first jutsu that came to his mind. How eyes turning purple with black circles in a ripple-like pattern around his pupil before he said two words that would have Jiraiya shitting his pants.
Universal Pull.
Shouted Sasuke as the force of gravity suddenly forced Zabuza to come flying towards Sasuke, dropping his jutsu in the process, while Naruto blinked surprised at the jutsu before she came back to her senses in time to shot a ball of poison chakra at Zabuza's stomach as Sasuke's eyes turned back to their usual onyx color before they changed to red with one tomo and two in the other. "You damned brat," growled Zabuza, pissed off as he went to swing his massive sword at Sasuke and Naruto, only for a massive wall of poison to block the sword while also making it start to rust slightly. "You won't hurt them," growled a voice as Jin appeared directly behind Zabuza, covered in his poison cloak which was shaped like a dragon. The only difference from his normal appearance in the cloak is that his eyes were red, slitted, and had 3 tomo with horizontal lines going through them spinning around the pupil dangerously. "I can see all of your moves, and I know a few new jutsu to help out," he growled as his chakra cloak gained a second tail which shot towards Zabuza, forcing the missing Nin to jump away or get hit, only for him to jump in front of Kakashi, who had just finished a stream of hand signs. "Water style, water dragon jutsu," shouted Kakashi as a dragon made of water shot out of the body of water he was previously trapped in before slamming into Zabuza's back, just in time for Naruto and Hinata to come in and kick him into the air before Naruto and Sasuke went through hand signs as fast as they could. "Wind style, great breakthrough jutsu, fire style, fireball jutsu," shouted the two as they fired their attacks next to each other, creating a massive plume of fire which gave Zabuza massive burns before Jin grabbed him by the neck, his poison cloak focusing around the hand that wasn't around Zabuza's neck. "This is the end, Zabuza. Poison style, chakra corrosion," he shouted as he slammed his hand into Zabuza, right where his chakra coils were before Senbon hit Zabuza directly in the neck, making him go completely limp. "You were right. That was the end," stated a slightly feminine voice as a hunter Nin from Kiri jumped down from a branch as Jin checked Zabuza's neck for a pulse, finding nothing as he dropped the lifeless body to the ground harshly. "He's dead. Quite a nice aim, you have to be able to do that with Senbon," stated Jin, slightly suspicious of the hunter Nin before him. "Thank you. I've been tracking Zabuza for a long time, waiting for this chance to finally take him down," stated the hunter Nin as they walked up to the body. "By your mask I see that you are a hunter Nin from Kiri," stated Kakashi as he lowered his headband back over his left eye. "Impressive. You are well informed," nodded the hunter Nin as they put Zabuza's arm over their shoulder. "Your struggle is over for now. I must deal with the remains. There are many secrets in this body. They must not be allowed to get into the wrong hands. Please excuse me," they stated as they formed a one-handed hand sign before disappearing in a spiral of wind and leaves, just as 2 tendrils of poison chakra impacted the ground that the two were at. "Where did they go?" shouted Naruto and Naruko as they looked around the area for any signs of Zabuza and the hunter Nin. "What's up with you, Dobe?" asked Sasuke / not understanding what Naruto and Naruko saw that triggered them. "That hunter Nin. He took Zabuza's body. Don't hunter Nins destroy the body on sight to avoid dash," started Naruto, growling loudly before the sound of 2 people impacting the ground rung throughout everyone's ears, making them look towards Jin and Kakashi, who had both fainted from using too much chakra, or in Jin's case, poison chakra. "Jin Ajisen," shouted the Uzumaki siblings in fright as they slung their uncle's arms over their shoulders while Sasuke and Hinata did the same with Kakashi. "Tazuna, are we close to your house? Jin-sensei and Kakashi-sensei will need a good place to rest," stated Sasuke, looking directly at Tazuna as his eyes returned to their onyx color. "Yes, my house should be about a 20-minute walk from here. My daughter should be able to help those two," stated Tazuna, making Sasuke nod as the group continued on, not noticing as a seal started glowing where Jin had originally fell over when he had his vision while in a cave under wave. A single eye opened up, revealing a slitted red eye. So, someone of the Namikaze managed to do that while I was asleep. I wonder what will happen in that boy, the one who contains 3 powers from Hagoromo's time. The body, eyes, and part of the chakra, all in one body. I think I might stay awake for this. Smirked a booming voice as the eye closed again before it turned into purple chakra which shot into the sky, coming out of a lake before spiraling into the air. Above the clouds as it formed into a Chinese-style dragon made out entirely of poison besides his eyes. Let's see if one of those two will wreck now. Gra! Groaned Jean as he woke up. His vision blurry as he stared up at the roof of the room he awoke in. What hit me? He mumbled to himself before the door to the room opened up as Naruto walked in. Jean Ajisen, you're awake, shouted Naruto happy as he noticed Jean was awake before he ran to the laying Jonin before he tackled him into a hug. Hey Naruto, I just woke up, chuckled Jean as he ruffled Naruto's hair slightly as he looked around the room. Say, where are we? He asked confused. We are in Tezuna's house. We took you and Kakashi-sensei here after you both fainted when Zabuza was taken away, explained Naruto as he got off of Jean, who tried to get onto his feet, only to wobble a little. Where are the others? Jean asked as he used a nearby wall to stabilize himself as he walked towards the door. Sis, Sasuke and Hinata are checking up on Kakashi. He woke up earlier, stated Naruto before he put his hands into a hand sign before he was covered in a cloud of smoke, which dissipated to show an older-looking Naruto who wore the same jumpsuit as the normal Naruto, who helped Jean keep stable by using his own body as a sort of crutch. That's good. I have a plan for some special training for you four, stated Jean, his eyes starting to turn red slightly as black tomo marks with horizontal lines started to materialize within them while his pupils slitted. Really? Is this going to be more physical torture that you call training? Asked Naruto, skeptical of his uncle's training methods. Well, I can't really make you run laps around Konoha, now can I? Smirked Jean, making Naruto grumble to himself while Jean noticed a slight strain of his poison chakra and cut the connection, making his eyes return to normal as the two walked into the same room as Kakashi and the other genin, who immediately got kunai ready at the sight of Naruto's current form. Peace. It's just Naruto using the Uzumaki style transformation jutsu, stated Jean calmly, making the genin put away their kunai. Jean Ajisen, are you okay? Asked Naruto, making Jean chuckle as he ruffled the blonde girl's hair slightly, smiling brightly. Yeah, a bit shaky on the legs, but besides that, I'm doing a lot better. In fact, I think I have a training idea for when Zabuza comes back. You two did tell Sasuke and Hinata that Zabuza is alive, right? Replied Jean, asking one of the important questions. Yes, they told us while you were asleep, Jean-sensei, nodded Sasuke while Hinata checked up on Jin's chakra levels, noticing that it seemed to instinctually go to his eyes. Now, you three are coming with Naruto and me to some kind of nearby area to train, so you can do better when Zabuza comes back, stated Jean before he covered himself in his poison chakra, making a few tendrils of it hold onto his students' shoulders before he used Shunshin to transport them to a field of trees before he bit his finger before slamming it into the ground, making a white, 8-tailed kitsune appear in a puff of smoke. HM? Who summoned me? Asked the vixen as she shook her fur slightly. I mean, who else could summon you, Hoyusha? Smirked Jean sarcastically, making the kitsune roll her eyes, smiling slightly. Of course it would be you, Jinny, chuckled Hoyusha as she looked at Naruto for a little bit before nodding towards his stomach. Let me guess, you want to get the blondie to sign our summoning contract? She asked. Yes, and I was wondering if you could talk to the Phoenix and Dragon summoning clans, stated Jean, making Hoyusha's eyes widen in shock at the request. You do realize that those two clans have a fragile relationship with us, right? She asked, growling slightly. I know, but if my idea works then it might help out. I just need the contract holders, stated Jean, keeping his calm, making Hoyusha nod before she exploded into a puff of smoke, which reappeared 5 times bigger as Hoyusha appeared with a red, orange and yellow feathered phoenix that was the same size as Hinata and a dark green and light green scaled wyvern that was the same size as Sasuke by her sides. Jin, these are the two you requested. Hoji Ryu of the Dragon Summoning Contract and Sora of the Phoenix Summoning Contract, stated Hoyusha simply as she walked up to Naruto, looking him up and down. Thank you. Now Hoji Ryu-sama, Sora-sama. I ask of you to judge my students Hinata Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha to see if Hinata is worthy of summoning phoenixes and Sasuke dragons, stated Jin, bowing down onto one knee as the two contract holders stared at the Jonin before turning their gazes towards Sasuke and Hinata walking up towards the two, staring them right in the eyes. This Hinata girl seems worth of summoning us of the Phoenix clan, stated Sora as she pecked at the ground in front of Hinata, making a scroll appear in a plume of fire. I, Hoji Ryu of the Dragon Summoning Contract, allow Sasuke Uchiha to summon us of the Dragon Clan, stated Hoji Ryu as he stomped on the ground in front of Sasuke, making a scroll rise up out of the ground. And I, Hoyusha of the Demon Fox Summoning Contract, allow Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze to summon us of the Demon Fox Contract, Hoyusha stated as she spat a bit of light at Naruto's feet, making a scroll appear in a flash of light. Great! Now, you three will need to sign your name into those contracts with your blood and put your fingerprint in your blood next to it, instructed Jin, making his genin nod as they wrote their names in their blood in their respective contracts and add there. Hey Jin-Ajizan, what about me? Why don't I get a contract? Asked Naruto, curious and slightly upset. Hey Naruto, you have the Demon Fox contract as well. You are a clone of Naruto after all. Chuckled Jin, making Naruto chuckle awkwardly at the fact she forgot about that little detail about herself. Now, I want you all to practice the summoning jutsu until you can reduce it to one hand sign or less, just like how I no longer need hand signs to summon those of the Demon Fox clan. And remember, to summon an animal, you need to offer up a small amount of blood. A simple bite on the finger will do. He instructed towards the genin, who nodded as Naruto started gathering up all of his chakra, making a slight cloak of blue chakra appear around his body, making everyone stare at him as he bit his finger just as bubbly red chakra stared to cover his body. What the hell? Asked Sora, shocked as she stared at the chakra Naruto was outputting before Jin's eyes widened as he fully realized what was going to happen. Naruto, don't! Jin shouted in vain as Naruto slammed his hand onto the ground, making a mountain-sized plume of smoke appear before 9 large orange tails started poking out of the smoke as the area was filled with a sense of pure power as the smoke began to fade, leaving everyone wide-eyed and in fear of who was in front of them. Kurama, the nine-tailed demon fox. Last time. Naruto, don't! Jin shouted in vain as Naruto slammed his hand onto the ground, making a mountain-sized plume of smoke appear before 9 large orange tails started poking out of the smoke as the area was filled with a sense of pure power as the smoke began to fade, leaving everyone wide-eyed and in fear of who was in front of them. Kurama, the nine-tailed demon fox. Now. Ha 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 ha. You were an idiot, Naruto, laughed Kurama evilly as he glared down at the terrified humans and Jin, who for the most part seemed to be staring at Kurama's neck. You really thought I wouldn't take the chance to force you to summon me? He asked, smirking as he started to open his mouth wide before his body stopped moving as if it was being constricted by a snake of some kind. Huh? So that's what happens. Smirked Jin before he pulled back his arm, pulling back a stream of poison chakra he had connected Kurama's neck. So, Kurama, did you know you have a collar on your neck now? Jin asked sarcastically as Kurama started to shake as the force of gravity multiplied on his body as his legs collapsed under him. What are you talking about, you filthy flesh bag? Growled Kurama in anger as everyone followed the poison cholera to Kurama's neck, where it was indeed connected to a collar, one that was covered in what could only be a sealing formula. Well, Minato wasn't an idiot. He must have factored Naruto getting the Demon Fox contract and summoning you. From what I can tell, that sealing formula on the collar makes it that Naruto can manipulate the chakra that makes up your body slightly. And only when you are out of the seal like this, it seems like Naruto and Naruko and manipulate what you look like when summoned. Smirked Jin as he looked over Kurama's collar before he noticed the sadistic grin Naruko was giving him. And, I think I regret letting Naruko train with Anko, he muttered. You think? Asked Sasuke and Naruto sarcastically as Naruto shot a chakra chain out of her wrist towards Kurama's collar. Jin, I hate you, growled Kurama as he started glowing while Naruto giggled before the glow died down to reveal a woman with long red hair and rather sizable, assets. Naruto, why did you decide to do that? Asked Jin, his eyes closed. Because I could, and you have to admit that Kurama makes an attractive would dash started Naruto before she and her chakra chain disappeared in a puff of smoke, revealing that Naruto had dispelled her before he connected his chakra chain to Kurama's collar and returned him back to his normal form. I won't say this lightly, but thank you for that, brat, growled Kurama, making Jin's eyes widen at what Kurama just said. Kyubi, don't thank me. I only did it because Naruto went far too fast. I may want to understand you, but I won't be friendly to you at first either. You have a lot of blood on your paws, and I want to gain a mutual respect with you before trying to understand you, stated Naruto, his voice devoid of emotion before Kurama started shrinking until he was the size of a horse. That being said, I want to give you a reason to try to respect me, so I'll let you out every now and then if you promise not to hurt anyone unless they attack you. Deal? He asked, giving Kurama an almost face-splitting grin.
Brat.
Why should I give you a chance for my respect? You are my jail, the thing stopping me from having my freedom, growled Kurama, realizing that with the collar on his neck and Naruto's chain connected to it, he couldn't do anything to hurt the blonde-haired brat. Because Kurama, he's trying to understand you and bond with you unlike Kushina and Mito, stated Jin as he got right up into Kurama's face, his eyes now different colors completely, his left eye green while his right had turned yellow. Besides accidentally plague your existence with Naruto, what has he done to harm you? He hasn't been chaining you up to a ball like Kushina did. Is he?
GRR fine.
I'll give the brat a chance to earn my respect, and I'll accept the deal he proposed. It's my best chance to get some freedom, growled Kurama as he snarled slightly at the idea of accepting any deal from a human as Jin's eyes turned back to normal. That's the best I could hope from you, Kurama. You have enough pride to rival an Uchiha with the Sharingan, chuckled Jin before he bit Jin on his left leg, piercing his skin and making him bleed. OW, you stupid fox. Why did you bite me? He shouted, angry at the sudden attack. Do not compare me to that clan. Ever, snarled Kurama, seriously pissed at Jin for dare comparing him to the Uchiha clan. Fine, growled Jin as he limped back to Tezuna's house to bandage up his leg after he created a clone to help his students with the summoning jutsu, not noticing a stream of poison chakra flowing into a secret seal he placed on his stomach, hidden under his bloodline limit seal. As he finished patching up his leg, he started to medicate to go into his own mindscape to talk to a being that he had sealed inside of himself a while ago. When he opened his eyes again, he was in a world of beautiful forests, lakes, mountains, oceans, deserts, and caves. He walked around before he noticed something that wasn't normally there. A swelling orb of poison was growing in one of the deserts of his mindscape. What is this? Jin asked, confused as he neared the orb of poison chakra just as it exploded outwards in a burst of poison, created a river of poison that flowed through the sky before it turned into Dokusei. Greetings, Jin Namikaze. I am Dash, started Dokusei before he was interrupted by Jin, who was now bowing on one knee. Dokusei, dragon god of poison, and the reason the Namikaze clan can use poison chakra, finished Jin, making Dokusei blink in surprise that Jin knew him so well. Well, I guess you have been doing your research, Jin Namikaze, smirked Dokusei, slightly amused at Jin's knowledge. Sadly, I haven't done that much research into the history of the Namikaze clan past what I have been told, as almost everything else had been destroyed with the rest of the clan, stated Jin, still bowing. I only know what I know from a vision I had of when my ancestor, Bijin Namikaze, summoned you for your help many years ago. He explained, making Dokusei nod in understanding. I understand. Let me tell you why I'm here. Recently, I awoke again for the first time in 100 years, and when I woke up, I sensed 3 highly concentrated sources of my power, 1 from you and 2 from those Uzumaki twins of yours. I decided to seal myself within you because you were in need of my help more, especially since you have clogged up your chakra network with so much of my chakra that using normal chakra is almost impossible unless you are using simple jutsu. Explained Dokusi-ai, making Jean blink before he grabbed onto something in his mind. Wait a second, are you saying that I could use my chakra if my chakra network wasn't so clogged up? Wait, isn't your chakra corrosive to other types of chakra? Asked Jean in shock, getting a chuckle from Dokusi-ai. Well, to an extent. But my chakra can also be corroded away by normal and Biju chakra, chuckled Dokusi-ai. Biju? Like Karama? If so, then we humans call them tailed beasts, stated Jean before Dokusi-ai shoved his face into Jean. Well, good job, you're wrong, he growled, making Jean piss himself slightly. Wait, why did you choose to seal yourself within me? Wouldn't Naruto have been a better host as he is younger? Asked Jean, trying to get away from the topic of tailed beasts. Yes, normally Naruto Uzumaki's body would be more ideal, but looking through your memories, I see that you are far more worthy of my help. Besides, what's one more beast inside your head? I mean, you already have plans to, at the most, have 8 entities in here, maybe 9 if things go south. Explained Dokusi-ai, making Jin's eyes widen in shock. Wait, you mean you know about my plan? And what I'm doing? Jean asked in shock and fear. Yes, and just know I approve of your goal. Just not the way you're going about it as much. I'll still help you with that. Nodded Dokusi-ai, making Jean sigh in relief before he nodded. Thank you for deciding to help me, Dokusi-ai-sama. I hope that I won't bring shame to your name, stated Jean as streams of poison started pouring out of the ground before being absorbed into Dokusi-ai's body, making him grow slightly while Jean felt different, fresher, in a way. I have cleared your chakra network of my chakra. So, Jean Namikaze, show me just what you can do. Alongside Matatabi, Dokusi-ai stated before he closed his eyes, turning into a massive stone structure as he went to sleep while Jean smiled. Yeah, I'll do that. Jean smiled before he started walking towards the forests, particularly a section covered in blue and black fire last time. Thank you for deciding to help me, Dokusi-ai-sama. I hope that I won't bring shame to your name, stated Jean as streams of poison started pouring out of the ground before being absorbed into Dokusi-ai's body, making him grow slightly while Jean felt different, fresher, in a way. I have cleared your chakra network of my chakra. So, Jean Namikaze, show me just what you can do. Alongside Matatabi, Dokusi-ai stated before he closed his eyes, turning into a massive stone structure as he went to sleep while Jean smiled. Yeah, I'll do that. Jean smiled before he started walking towards the forests, particularly a section covered in blue and black fire. Now we tune into the 5th day of training for Team 7. The 4 genin were working on their chakra control and summoning while Jean was working on his jutsu repertoire by training with Kakashi. Alright Kakashi, let's go. Smirked Jean as he grabbed a kunai out of the pouch on his hip before throwing it towards the one-eyed jonin, forcing him to jump out of the way as Jean went through hand signs before firing a moderately sized fireball at Kakashi, who fired a bigger fireball in return, consuming Jin's fireball while adding the fire into itself, making it bigger as Jean jumped out of the way, just as it exploded, catching a few trees ablaze before the 2 jonin flashed through hand signs as water from the lake behind them rose up and doused out all of the fire. That was a nice fireball for your situation. Let's go check up on our genin now. Smiled Kakashi under his mask as the 2 jonin ran through the forest before coming across their students, panting at the bottom of trees with blood uncovering one of their thumbs from the multitude of bites they gave themselves. Well, except for Naruto, she was asleep on the ground, tired out. Alright kids, let's get back to Tezuna's house so you can properly rest. Smiled Jean as he helped the genin up onto their feet while Naruto dispelled herself. Hey Jinajizan, can we deactivate the dash? Started Naruto before Jean shot him a look that screamed, no. Effectively shutting up the blonde Jinchuriki as the group of 5 headed back to Tezuna's house, only Jean and Kakashi noticing that they were being followed by Santo, Tabi, and another person, more than likely their backup. As Team 7 got back into Tezuna's house, a knock came from the door. Tsunami, the daughter of Tazuna, opened the door, allowing a female Umbu Black Ops agent with shoulder-long violet hair and a kitsune mask to come in, making Jin's eyes widen in shock. Kitsune, what are you doing here? Asked Jin in surprise as he started at the woman. What, are you unhappy with me being your backup Jinny? Asked Kitsune sarcastically, making Jin sigh in annoyance. Kitsune, I told you not to call me that in public. It's embarrassing, sighed Jin, making Kitsune giggle while Naruto, who was in the corner, stared at the two confused. Jin-Ajisen? Who is this woman and why did she call you Jinny? Asked Naruto, confused, becoming even more so when he heard Kurama choking on his own laughter in his mind. You see Naruto, this is Umbu Black Ops Agent Kitsune. She's, well, chuckled Jin awkwardly before Kitsune finished for him. I'm his girlfriend. I call Jin Jinny as a little pet name. I could also call him Dragon since he used to also be in the Umbu. Kitsune smiled under her mask while Jin blushed in embarrassment and Naruto stared in shock, while Kurama was laughing his furry ass off inside of Naruto and Matatabi was giggling inside of Jin's head. You're his what? Screamed Naruto before his internal self was punched over the head by Naruto, while his real-life self was hit over the head by Jin at the same time, giving him a headache. Ow! He groaned before he felt the forces of gravity multiply on his body, making him fall to the floor. Naruto, I warned you not to shout like that again when I'm around, sighed Jin as he poked his pinky finger into his ear before twisting it a little while Naruto was trying to get back up onto his feet before gravity returned to how it was for Naruto. Sorry, Jin-Ajisen, but I mean it is surprising. You haven't been in Konoha for 12 years. So that means you kept a long-distance relationship up for over 12 years. Explained Naruto, making Jin and Kitsune chuckle. Oh boy. Now, Uzumaki-san, the truth is that Jinny here has been doing missions for Konoha on his travels as Dragon of the Umbu. We actually started dating around a year ago. Smiled Kitsune, making Naruto nod in understanding before Jin was covered in a puff of smoke, which disappeared to show that he was now clothed in basic Umbu clothing, only with a dragon-based mask on his face and a gunbai on his back that looked similar to the one which was wielded by Madara Uchiha. Only instead of Tomo markings on it, it had purple dragon heads on it. It's been a short while since I got back into this getup, smirked Jin under his mask as he moved his arm around in its socket before he took off his mask. But I think it's time I leave that behind. Umbu Dragon was a mask I hid behind to hide from the pain of losing my family. Now, I think it's time that Jin Namikaze got recognition for his Umbu-based actions. He said as he threw the mask into the air before he used his gunbai to shatter the mask while sealing the shattered pieces into a storage seal on his gunbai, making Kitsune's eyes widen behind her mask before she looked at his face and saw an emotion she hadn't seen in a long time. A deep-rooted determination. A determination to continue on the path he's chosen, not for himself, but for those he cares about. Jarcius. That is all for this chapter. I hope you have all enjoyed. I know this chapter is a bit shorter than some others I've posted. Naruto, yeah, and most of us didn't talk, which is a problem with a lot of your fan fictions. Jarcius, Jin, activate the gravity seals. Jin, already on it. Naruto, oof, why? Jarcius, you fucked with me, that's why. Now, to make up for that, I will give you all a sneak peek to the death of Jin. Jin, I thought you were joking. Jarcius, I wasn't. Sneak peek. Gah! Screamed Jin as he went flying, crashing into a wall before falling next to Jiraiya, who was slightly covered in his own blood. Ha! So, Jiraiya-sensei, how much chakra do you have left? Jin asked his sensei, panting hard as the tip of his nose and his eyes returned to their normal color and forms while the whiskers on his cheeks disappeared, signaling that his sage mode had run out of energy. Not much. I only have enough for one jutsu, panted Jiraiya, making Jin nod in understanding. Thought so. I only have enough energy left in me to get off one last normal jutsu before I have to go to my last resort. Jin stated, making Jiraiya look at him. This last resort of yours. What is it? Jiraiya asked, slightly afraid of the answer. It's nothing for you to worry about. Now, Jiraiya, one of us is going to survive this. And can you please tell Team 7 that I'm sorry? Asked Jean, making Jiraiya's eyes widen in shock. Are you insane? I'm not leaving you here, shouted Jiraiya before Jean moved quickly, punching the toad sage in the stomach, effectively knocking him out in one attack.
I'm sorry, Jiraiya.
I really am, sighed Jean sadly as he used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu on Jiraiya to transport him back to Konoha before he fell over onto his knees and stared up at the 6 paths of pain. Now do you see? You are powerless before a god, stated Pain emotionlessly, making Jean chuckle in mirth as he got up shakily onto his legs as he pressed his thumb over his heart, right on a tenketsu located there. Hee hee, a god you say? Well, let's see how much of a god you are. Once I take out your Naraka path. Jean grinned as a green aura of sorts started forming around his body, while his skin started turning red from its increasing blood pressure before the aura turned blue as his hair started to rise up from the energy surrounding his body. The 8 inner gates? How pathetic, stated Pain, just as emotionlessly as before the blue aura exploded into a blood red as Jin's skin started to darken ever so slightly. 8 inner gates. Gate of death. Open, shouted Jean before he vanished from sight before grabbing Pain's Naraka path from behind with a bear hug last time. It's been a short while since I got back into this getup, smirked Jean under his mask as he moved his arm around in its socket before he took off his mask. But I think it's time I leave that behind. Umbu Dragon was a mask I hid behind to hide from the pain of losing my family. Now, I think it's time that Jean Namikaze got recognition for his Umbu-based actions, he said as he threw the mask into the air before he used his gunbai to shatter the mask while sealing the shattered pieces into a storage seal on his gunbai, making Kitsune's eyes widen behind her mask before she looked at his face and saw an emotion she hadn't seen in a long time. A deep-rooted determination. A determination to continue on the path he's chosen, not for himself, but for those he cares about. Now, we tune in as Team 7, minus Naruto, and by extension Naruko, who is still sleeping at Tezuna's house. Kitsune and Tezuna are walking towards the bridge that Tezuna was building. As they got near it, they noticed that the builders who were working there already were unconscious on the ground, slightly groaning. Hold on, what the heck is this? Asked Tezuna in shock as the group of 6 looked at the unconscious workers. What happened? Someone was here. Someone got to them, shouted Tezuna in worry as a thick mist started to collect in the air, blocking a good deal of sight. I thought so. Sasuke. Hinata, get ready, stated Jean as he pulled his gunbai off of his back in preparation for the incoming fight as the 2 genin pulled out kunai alongside Kakashi, while Kitsune pulled out a scythe from a seal on her arm, while Tezuna stood in between the 5 ninja just as the group was surrounded by multiple copies of Zabuza. Sorry I kept you waiting. I see you got some backup and those brats too, smirked one of the Zabuza as he pointed at Sasuke, who was shaking slightly. That one's still shaking. Pitiful. He smirked just as Sasuke smirked. I'm trembling with excitement, Sasuke stated simply before he disappeared, making all of the Zabuza that were surrounding them collapse into water, slashes going through their chests before they collapsed. Ooh, so you could see they were water clones, huh? Smirked Zabuza as he and the hunter Nin from before stepped onto the bridge, the brats improving. Looks like you've got a rival Haku. Zabuza smirked underneath the wrappings cover the lower portion of his face. So it seems, nodded Haku as Sasuke activated his Sharingan, which now held 2 tomo inside of both eyes. Well, so we had it right. It was all an act. Smirked Kakashi under his mask as he noticed a slight purple shine come off of one of Jin's kunai. An act with a cute little mask, added Kitsune as she smiled sadistically under her mask. She really didn't take well to the fact that Haku impersonated a hunter Nin, especially so since she used to be one before she became an Umbu captain. So I guess all that about him being a hunter Nin and protecting his village was just a bunch of bull, growled Tezuna, making the Jonin and Genin nod. They look chummy. I'd bet they've done this many times, stated Sasuke simply as Hinata flared her chakra, making the veins near her eyes bulge out as she got into the gentle fist fighting pose. Who does he think he's fooling? Hiding behind that mask, like some sort of clown, he growled out. He's impressive, stated Haku passively, making Zabuza grunt in response. Even though they were just 1/10 the strength of the original water clone jutsu, he did destroy them all, stated Haku simply as stood passively next to Zabuza. That move still gave us the first advantage. Use it, growled back Zabuza, making Haku nod in understanding before he started spinning fast enough to make his body seem like a blur to Hinata, while the Jonin, Kitsune and Sasuke saw it completely as Haku span towards Sasuke, drawing a senbon needle as he did so, before Sasuke blocked Haku's senbon with his kunai. Hinata, keep close to Tazuna, and if need be, use rotation to protect him, stated Jin as he, Kakashi and Kitsune prepared to rush Zabuza. Sasuke will deal with that, Haku kid, he added as he noticed Sasuke and Haku trying to gain the upper hand on the other as they tried to force the other over while the two Jonin and one Umbu rushed towards Zabuza. We want the bridge builder, not you. If you back down, I won't have to kill you, stated Haku in his dislike of killing people, making Sasuke growl slightly. Save it, he growled out as he flared his chakra, making the force behind his push increase, only for Haku to increase his own, making the two stay at a stalemate. You're making a mistake, stated Haku simply as he looked around his and Sasuke's feet, looking at the heavy amount of water that was there from the destroyed water clones. You won't be able to keep up with my speed. I have two key advantages, Haku stated simply, making Sasuke smirk. Yeah? What are they? Sasuke asked arrogantly, something that Jin picked up from his fight with Zabuza. Sasuke, what have I said about being arrogant? Jin screamed, making some birds who decided to perch in nearby trees fly away and Sasuke shiver in fear of his enraged sensei. Well, first, we're surrounded by water. Second, I've blocked one of your hands. Therefore, you only have one free hand to defend yourself, Haku stated as he brought his other hand in front of his face. Sasuke doing the same as they both went through secret jutsu, 1,000 needles of death, Haku stated as he finished his hand signs while Sasuke continued his own ones. Haku then kicked up a massive amount of water which suspended itself in the air for a few seconds before it condensed and sharpened into a ring of razor-sharp ice senbon which flew at Sasuke just as he finished his hand signs. Fire style, overheating body jutsu, Sasuke shouted as a cover of red surrounded his body as the water on the ground around them evaporated, creating stream, just as the needles melted and evaporated just like the water in a matter of a second. Just as all the needles melted, Haku's senbon started to get hot. Extremely so, forcing the fake hunter Nin to jump away and drop the senbon as the red cover around Sasuke's body disappeared as he dropped his kunai as well. Slight burns left on his hand before he disappeared in a burst of speed, appearing behind Haku. You're not as fast as you think. Now you'll be the one defending from my attacks. He smirked as he pulled out another, cooler, kunai before he started attacking Haku, passing by Jin and Kitsune as they swiped their weapons at Zabuza at the same time, forcing the missing Nin to block it with his massive sword, before he was forced to jump away by Kakashi, who was about to stab him in the stomach with a kunai. Kitsune, now! Shouted Jin as he and Kitsune used Zabuza's blade to jump further away while keeping Zabuza in place for a little longer as they both weaved through hand signs. Collaboration jutsu, lightning storm dragon, shouted the couple as they made a dragon out of wind and a dragon out of electricity before sending it towards Zabuza, who dodged it, only for the two dragons to fuse behind him, making a black dragon that shot stray bolts of lightning out at random time that redirected itself to attack Zabuza again. Gore, water style, water dragon jutsu, shouted Zabuza as a dragon made entirely of water shot out from the side of the bridge and hit the black dragon head-on, making it explode into a massive ball of lightning and thunder, blinding Zabuza, Kakashi, Jin, Kitsune, Tazuna and Hinata temporarily, giving Haku enough time to use a jutsu on Sasuke, trapping the Uchiha in a dome made entirely of ice mirrors before the masked boy walked into one of the mirrors, appearing in all of the mirrors at once before he started to barrage Sasuke with Senbon from all directions. Sadly for the Uchiha, even though he could predict where and when Haku was going to attack, his last jutsu took a lot out of him, limiting what he could do as he was pelted by the barrage of Senbon, some sticking out of his body while some went through his skin, making him bleed slightly, some of said blood mixing into the water on the floor. Just as Haku was about to throw another set of Senbon at Sasuke, 2 shurikens scratched across his mask, leaving a deep X-shaped cross over the middle of it while also knocking him out of the mirrors on the outside as 2 orange blurs rush past him before kicking Zabuza in the face just as he was about to slash at a still-blinded Kakashi. "The Uzumaki twins are here," shouted Naruto excitedly while Naruko nodded slightly as she ran over to Hinata and Tazuna, getting a kunai out as well. "Those idiots. If they had stayed hidden it would have been more effective," growled Kakashi in his mind while Jin and Kitsune were smirking. "All right, Naruto. Help Sasuke take on the fake Hunter Nin," shouted Jin as he charged at Zabuza with his gunbai while Naruto nodded and pulled out a kunai as he rushed towards Haku, poison chakra leaking off of his body before the Yuki slipped back into the mirrors, throwing another barrage of Sunbon at the Uchiha before the Uzumaki ran into the dome, his poison chakra forming a protective bubble around the 2 boys as the masked Nin outside the bubble tried to penetrate it. "Sasuke, are you okay?" Naruto asked concerned, noticing the state of his teammate, cuts all over his body and tears all through his shirt and pants. "Yeah, he's just playing with me. These cuts aren't deep and avoid all vital spots," growled Sasuke annoyed as he ate a soldier pill, feeling as his chakra flared back to its maximum levels. "All right, but we can get out of here easily. I mean, you haven't used fire style, overheating body yet, have you?" Naruto smiled, making Sasuke growl and look away from the blonde. "I used it earlier to stop his 1,000 needles of death jutsu, and to make matters worse, my body hasn't fully cooled back down. If I use it again, I'll get a fever," growled Sasuke annoyed, making Naruto growl himself. "Fine, we'll just have to melt them the team way. Get ready, okay?" stated Naruto as the bubble started to gain smaller bubbles on the sides as wind chakra was mixed into it, making it move and bubble up randomly as Sasuke grabbed a kunai, covering it with fire chakra before he threw it through the bubble, igniting it as it became a small fireball before Naruto manipulated the poison chakra inside of it to turn it into a small fiery tornado, which was starting to melt the mirrors around it. In response to this, Haku took aim at Naruto from the mirror above him, in the eye of the storm, before he threw a bunch of Senbon at Naruto, who didn't notice them. "Naruto, move!" shouted Sasuke as he pushed Naruto out of the way, jumping, interrupting the tornado while taking the Senbon to the neck, making him fall to the ground. "Sasuke!" shouted Naruto in concern as he ran up to Sasuke, who was barely keeping his eyes open at this point, despite the stimulants he ingested through the soldier pill. Meanwhile, outside of the dome, Zabuza managed to knock Jin's gunbai out of his hand, making it go flying off the edge of the bridge as Kitsune jumped over Jin and tried to slash at Zabuza with her scythe, only for Zabuza to block the strike. "You know, I found one main weakness with you scythe users," grinned Zabuza as he put chakra into his arm, making it stronger as he made a clean cut through Kitsune's scythe, taking the blade completely off before he kicked her away. "Take away the blade, and they can't fight anymore," Zabuza finished, smirking behind his wrappings before he noticed that Jin was laughing. "What's so funny?" he demanded angrily before something smashed into his face, knocking him over. While Kitsune is create with a scythe, the weapon she really shines with is a bow staff and other staff-based weapons. Jin smirked. "Now tell me, Zabuza, what is a scythe without a blade?" he asked, making the demon of the mist's eyes widen as he looked and saw Kitsune, swinging the staff of her broken scythe around her body with an impressive amount of skill before she used it to jump into the air before she used her height in the air and her knee to knock the air out of Zabuza as she landed on him. "I'll tell you what it is, a staff," smiled Kitsune as she flipped back, using her staff to get further away from Zabuza before she froze along with Naruto, Hinata, Kakashi, and Jin as they felt the evil power of Kurama. It was in the ice dome where Naruto was, more specifically around Naruto as he looked down at the dead body of Sasuke Uchiha, a cloak of red chakra starting to form around his body as it took the shape of a fox, one tail waving behind him before he opened his red eyes, each with a slitted pupil and one tomo in each eye last time. "I'll tell you what it is, a staff," smiled Kitsune as she flipped back, using her staff to get further away from Zabuza before she froze along with Naruto, Hinata, Kakashi, and Jin as they felt the evil power of Kurama. It was in the ice dome, where Naruto was, more specifically around Naruto as he looked down at the dead body of Sasuke Uchiha. A cloak of red chakra starting to form around his body as it took the shape of a fox, one tail waving behind him before he opened his red eyes, each with a slitted pupil and one tomo in each eye. Now, everyone stared at Naruto in either shock, fear, or a mixture of the two emotions. His red chakra started to change some of his other features, his whisker marks widening slightly while darkening as his hair became wilder and his canines and fingernails lengthened and grew sharper as his wounds healed, before similar red chakra started to come out of Naruto's stomach, making her grip her stomach strongly, before she exploded into a puff of smoke. "I'm gonna kill you," Naruto growled, his voice gaining a demonic edge to it as he dropped down onto all fours, like a fox would before he rushed towards one of Haku's mirrors, any senbon that Haku threw at him being deflected by Kurama's chakra. Naruto then punched the mirror that Haku was in, making it shatter into fragments before the masked Nin came out of one of the shards above Naruto and tried to stab the blonde, only for him to jump out of the way, spinning in the air while the red chakra around his body seemed to move, creating a second body, completely made out of the red chakra which took a similar form to the cloak over Naruto's body.
Impossible.
Haku thought to himself as he jumped towards one of his broken mirrors, only for a clawed hand made out of Kurama's red chakra to grab him by the wrist and pull him towards Naruto and the second body of chakra, which now had a human bone structure inside of it. One matching the female bone structure, Naruto then grabbed Haku with his normal hand and unleashed a lot of Kurama's power into the air, making it gain a red tint to it as it started to glow Haku's hair back a bit, while the skeletal figure started to grow flesh and veins. "I can't. This energy is too strong," Haku thought to himself as he watched Naruto pull his free hand back into a fist. "Rah!" Naruto roared as his fist started covering itself with the wild and hateful energy from Kurama. Soon enough the chakra was so potent that Naruto's fist seemed to be a glowing ball at this point. The second figure was slowly gaining skin and eyes as it pulled its fist back as well, mimicking Naruto before the two punched Haku's mask at the same time, sending the ice-style user flying through one of his own mirrors, shattering it completely while the other mirrors started to crack. The same, happening straight down Haku's mask as the left half of it flew off of his face as an enraged Naruto jumped towards him, intent on pounding his face into the ground as he stood up on his 2 feet, the other half of his mask slowly falling off of his face. "Zabuza, I am no match for this boy. I have failed you," Haku thought to himself sadly as he watched Naruto's fist approach his face, also noticing that the second figure that was created from the red chakra was in fact Naruto, who was now wearing a simple red kimono with a yellow fire coming off of the sleeves and bottom of it. "You're the guy from the forest," Naruto stated, his fist stopping just before Haku's face, the tail of his chakra cloak waving calmly behind him as it shrunk back into the rest of the cloak along with the ears, the same happening with the cloak around Naruto, who was still standing in the mirrors as they shattered completely. "Why do you not strike?" Haku asked Naruto calmly, his voice almost devoid of all emotion. "Did you not vow to avenge your friend's death by killing me? Or was that all empty words?" He continued, never taking his eyes off of Naruto, who stared back in silent shock and confusion before he looked back at Sasuke's needle-filled corpse that Naruto was checking over, sad that her friend and teammate was dead, making Naruto growl, the rest of the Uzumaki's cloaks fading away, before Naruto punched Haku in the face with enough for to send him to the ground and spit out blood as he tried to get back up. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bridge, Zabuza was being knocked around constantly by Kitsune and her improvised staff, the demon of the mist not being able to do anything as he was constantly blocked by either Kitsune or Jin before dogs appeared out of the ground and bit Zabuza in his legs and ankles, holding him in place slightly while Jin flashed through hand signs. "Here's Zabuza. Have one of my strongest jutsu. Poison style. Corrosive bullet." Jin shouted as his cheeks and chest began to puff out, slightly growing until a little bit of smoke started to come out of Jin's mouth, signaling that the attack was ready as Jean fired a ball of highly corrosive toxins towards Zabuza, who couldn't move enough to get away, before a mirror of ice appeared in front of Zabuza as Haku jumped out of it, landing in front of Zabuza and taking the brunt of the attack head-in for the Demon of the Mist before falling over, the front of his shirt having melted under the power of the attack, the skin underneath purple from the toxins. Heh, what a useful tool. Zabuza smirked as he swung his sword at Jean, only for Kitsune to send it flying into the air with her staff before Kakashi stabbed two kunai into both of Zabuza's arms, disabling them as blood covered the missing nin's arms, before everyone heard clapping coming from the end of the bridge. Did quite a job on you, didn't he, Zabuza? You look like yesterday's sashimi. I must say I'm disappointed. Smirked a voice as Zabuza's mist faded away enough to allow everyone to see that the voice belonged to Zabuza's client, Gato, who had a massive horde of mercenaries behind him, all armed with sharp weaponry from swords and spears to pitchforks and knives. Gato? I don't understand. What is all this? And why are you here? And who are all these thugs you've brought with you? Zabuza asked Gato, a slight growl to his voice while Jin's eyes widened slightly, realizing what this all was. Well, you see, there's been a slight change in plans. According to the new plan, you die right here on this bridge, Zabuza. Gato stated, a smirk growing on his face while Zabuza's eyes widened in the same realization that Jin's had, getting a what of shock from the missing nin. That's right, you're too expensive. So I decided to take you off the payroll. Of course, even these thugs I brought with me cost something, so if you could manage to slaughter a few of them before they take you down, I'd appreciate it. Think you can manage that demon ninja of the mist? Look at ya, you look as demonic as a wet kitten. Gato continued, mocking Zabuza and making the mercenaries behind him laugh. At Zabuza. Well, it would seem our fight is at an end. Zabuza stated calmly, staring at the army on the bridge, not noticing as Jean placed his hand on Haku's chest, a purple glow over his hand. Since I am no longer under Gato's employ, Tizuna is safe. We have no quarrel. Yeah, I suppose you are right. Kakashi nodded calmly as Gato calmly stood by his thugs as the purple on Haku's skin started to fade away, being absorbed back into Jean by Dokusuai. And while they're at it, they might as well kill you as well. Gato smirked, motioning to Jean, Kakashi, and Naruto. But leave the women alive. They might provide us some entertainment after we are done with them. He added, making Jean freeze up, the area suddenly becoming cold, very cold. The poison that Dokusuai was draining out of Haku slowly poured back into him as Jean got up, his eyes covered by his hair as he walked in front of Zabuza and Kakashi, the two backing up as they saw what was hidden under his hair. Did you just threaten to rape the females here? Jean asked quietly, so quietly that Gato was strained to hear what he said. Yeah, and what about it? You lot are tired from the fighting while my men are fresh on the field. You have nothing on me. Gato laughed at Jean, not noticing as the temperature lowered even more, some of the water under them actually starting to gain a layer of ice on it. You just made 3 mistakes in one comment. Jean growled, making Gato and his men look at him confused. Mistake 1. You threatened to rape my girlfriend. Mistake 2. You threatened to rape my student. And mistake 3. You threatened to rape my fucking niece, he screamed, lifting his eyes up, his left eye green with a black slit pupil, while his right eye was yellow with another black slit pupil in it. Just then poison chakra exploded off of his body, quickly taking the form of a dragon with 2 tails that waved around dangerously before they turned into blue and black fire as a third, purple tail grew out and waved around alongside the 2 fire tails. This sight along with the pure power radiating off of Jean was enough to make Gato, his thugs, Team 7, Kitsune and Zabuza take a few steps back in shock and fear of Jean before he started growling, before Jean disappeared as the first row of thugs lost their heads, making Gato run to the back of the army in fear for his life as Jean appeared in the middle of the army, his chakra tails waving around wildly, knocking a few thugs off of the bridge and into the water. He's just one ninja. We can get him, one of the hopeless thugs shouted, rallying the rest of the army to attack Jean. Not that it did much when the poison chakra around his body shot out in the form of hands and began to mercilessly choke any thugs that tried to attack him, before snapping their necks just as they fell unconscious. Fire-style mouse hairball, Jean shouted, his voice demonic sounding as he flashed through hand signs before he fired a mouse made of blue and black fire out of his mouth towards a bandit, only for the mouse to spit up into about 7 small fireballs made out of the same fire which hit 7 of the bandits around the original one, making them scream in pain before they threw themselves off of the bridge to try and extinguish the flames. Not that the high fall did any help for them. Jean then shot through the army again, ripping and tearing thugs into chunks left and right. Some of the thugs got mercy in just being stabbed in the heart or brain, while others were forced to slowly bleed out while pinned to the ground by kunai. This horror scene continued until most of the thugs had either ran away, been pinned to the ground or killed, leaving Jean in the middle of the bridge between Gato and the others, his chakra tails waving behind him calmly, his clothes covered in pretty much gallons of blood as he stared at Gato, his eyes glowing slightly as he steadily walked towards Gato, who was backing up in fear before he reached the very edge of the bridge, Jean still approaching him calmly. "Wait, please. I'll give you anything. Just spare me," Gato shouted in fear, cowering as Jean got right up into his face. The ninja's eyes turning red as 3 tomo with horizontal lines through them formed in his eyes as the area around Gato started to lose its color, turning black and red, before Matatabi appeared behind Jean and roared at Gato, making him piss himself before Jean grabbed him by the neck. "You think I want anything from you? Someone so self-absorbed that they would drain an entire country dry of both resources and hope? No, I have a much better idea in mind." Jean smirked evilly as he threw Gato towards Matatabi, who had her mouth wide open, ready to chomp down on the businessman, who was screaming in terror with his eyes closed before he felt his body impact with the ground, making him open his eyes to see everything was back to its normal colors, as he tried to crawl away from Jean only to bump into someone's leg. Turning around, Gato was terrified to see a small army of villagers from the Land of Waves being led by Inari, grandson of Tazuna, who had a makeshift crossbow aimed at the fat midget's head. "My idea is that the village you drained decide your fate, like how you decided to do to them. I think you already know what is going to happen, right?" Jean smirked as his chakra cloak faded away, the fire tails disappearing in a puff of smoke last time. "You think I want anything from you? Someone so self-absorbed that they would drain an entire country dry of both resources and hope? No, I have a much better idea in mind." Jean smirked evilly as he threw Gato towards Matatabi, who had her mouth wide open, ready to chomp down on the businessman, who was screaming in terror with his eyes closed before he felt his body impact with the ground, making him open his eyes to see everything was back to its normal colors, as he tried to crawl away from Jean only to bump into someone's leg. Turning around, Gato was terrified to see a small army of villagers from the Land of Waves being led by Inari, grandson of Tazuna, who had a makeshift crossbow aimed at the fat midget's head. "My idea is that the village you drained decide your fate, like how you decided to do to them. I think you already know what is going to happen, right?" Jean smirked as his chakra cloak faded away, the fire tails disappearing in a puff of smoke. Now, all the present ninja was staring at Jean in either shock and confusion as the mob dragged a pleading Gato into town to punish him, if you get what I mean. The ninja on the bridge kept staring at Jean for a few minutes before Naruto interrupted the silence. "Jean Ajisen, what was that?" Naruto asked, his voice portraying his surprise, making Jean chuckle awkwardly. Part in from having everyone stare at him, but mostly because he accidentally used Matatabi's chakra where he was taking out the thugs. "Well, that was in part why I was called the Dragon Flash. When I get angry, my poison chakra will form a dragon-like construct around my body, and to add to the terror of the process, I used a transformation jutsu to add the blue fire tails usually linked with the Jinchuriki of the Nibi. It looked scary, didn't it?" Jean chuckled awkwardly, making up a relatively believable lie up on the fly. A lie which thankfully worked to his advantage as all the ninja believed it, although Kitsune looked suspicious at the truth of what Jean said. Jean then walked over to Haku's body, his hand glowing purple again as he placed it on the teen's chest while Naruto started swaying a little before she fell over, being drained from using Kurama's chakra.
Yeah.
"But, Jean Ajisen, is Haku going to be okay?" I mean, he took your attack head-on, Naruto asked, looking at the black-haired boy, whose chest was returning to its normal as his breathing slowly returned to a safe state. Depends on your definition of okay. He's be able to walk properly in about a week's time, but jutsu will be out of his reach for a whole month to possibly 5 of them, long enough for him to get too rusty and have to train not only his chakra, but his control all over again. But after the week he needs to physically recover, he'll be perfectly fine to travel with Zabuza again. Jean sighed as he took his hand away from Haku's chest. Letting a sigh out, Jean started to stand back up before Zabuza scoffed. Why in the deepest pits of hell would I want a broken tool like the boy? Zabuza asked in a cold and aggressive voice as he walked over to his sword. The boy is nothing but a broken tool who has become useless. He repeated himself, making Jean and Naruto growl. How dare you? You and Haku were together for years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Naruto shouted as he stood in the way between Zabuza and his sword, his eyes turning red as his pupils turned into slits. You don't understand the way of shinobi, brat. Zabuza growled at Naruto, making the blonde take a step back in surprise. I was merely using him, just as Gato used me. Now it's over. His usefulness is at an end. The loss of his strength and skill, yes, that means something to me, but the boy? Nothing. Zabuza continued, making Naruto growl slightly under his breath as he glared at Zabuza. If you mean that, you are an even bigger rat than I thought, Naruto shouted, making Kakashi move to stop Naruto from speaking, only for a wall of poison to stop him from doing so. Turning around, Kakashi saw Jean using his poison chakra to block the silver-haired Jonin's path while shaking his head negatively, telling Kakashi to stop, you ungrateful. After everything he did for you, Naruto continued, growling louder, Haku lives for you. You are the most important person in the damn world to him, and he means absolutely nothing to you. Nothing at all. While he was sacrificing everything for you, you never felt anything at all for him. That scares me. Because, does that mean that if I become stronger, does that mean I'll eventually become as cold-hearted as you are? He almost threw his life away. And for what? For you and your dream? He never had a dream of his own. You never let him. But was he unhappy with that? No. He wasn't. He didn't even care. And you just toss him aside as if he was nothing. A broken tool? Man, that's so fucked up. Naruto continued his rant, tears beginning to leak out of his eyes as the poison wall Jean put up slowly lowered, allowing Kakashi, Kitsune, and Hinata to see that not only was Naruto crying, but so was Zabuza, the feared demon of the mist, a cold-hearted killer, crying, because of a wet behind-the-ears genin, and a truth he didn't want to acknowledge. You talk too much, Zabuza growled out, his head facing towards the ground, making Naruto look up at him, just in time to see the tears begin to slowly fall off of Zabuza's face and onto the bridge below them before Zabuza looked back over at Haku's unconscious body. Your words cut deep, kid. Deeper than any blade. While he fought you, his heart was breaking in two. You see, Haku has and will always be too soft and too kind. He felt pain and sorrow, and now curse him. I feel them too, but something else. I feel that if I were to have died, I would be content that was how it ends. Zabuza continued, making mortars begin to leak out of Naruto's eyes before the missing Nin walked closer to him. Well, cat got your tongue? Are you so surprised to discover I'm human? Even shinobi are human. No matter how hard we try to escape that simple fact. We always fail. Well, at least I have failed. Zabuza continued as he looked at Naruto before looking from Naruto to his sword, and then finally from his sword to his wounds, which continued to bleed. Boy. No. Naruto, I want you to look after Haku from now on. I know as I am, I won't be able to do it for too long. And the damned brat deserves more than a life on the run. Zabuza requested before his eyes widened slightly as he started coughing out blood, a kunai sticking out of his back, just above his heart, making Naruto glare past Zabuza and to a thug who had somehow managed to survive despite losing an arm and picked up a kunai that Jean had dropped when he tore through the group of thugs earlier, which was covered in poison. Hee hee, you were right, you won't last long. The thug smirked before he noticed the glares from all the conscious people around before Naruto growled. Grabbing the Kubikirabocho, Naruto rushed towards the thug and started spinning with the blade in his hand. Red chakra covering his body as he became a form of spinning top of death as he neared the thug, who was frozen in fear for approximately 3 seconds before he was sliced into millions of little flesh ribbons by Naruto, who, after spinning for a few more seconds, stopped before stumbling over to the edge of the bridge as he fell onto his butt, dizzy from spinning so much. Naruto, are you okay? Jean asked as he walked over to his nephew, before the blonde genin turned to the side of the bridge and began to puke out what he ate for dinner out into the water, and onto one of the floating bodies. Gross. All Jean could do was sit next to his nephew and pat him on the back as he continued to puke while Zabuza stared at them and his sword.
Brat.
Zabuza mumbled before he started coughing, making Naruto look towards the missing Nin. I know I won't have long. Even if your uncle gets the poison out of me, I'll probably go into a coma, be in the same situation as Haku or die, but I have to say that you surprised me, and I think that Kubikirabocho would do better in your hands than in anyone else's, going off of the fact that you were able to use it so easily, and it might give you something to grow into. He continued, coughing up blood every now and then as Jean put his hand on the demon ninja's back as it glowed purple for a second before he sighed. You were right about you dying, Zabuza. I'm sorry to say, but the poison has already reached your heart. As it is now, you would most certainly die, and if not, you would either be disabled for life or in a coma. Neither are things that would go well for you, but there is one last thing I can do for you, give you an honorable-sounding death. Jean sighed, smiling sadly at the end of his talk as he tossed a kunai into the air, making Zabuza grab it weakly in his mouth as he coughed again and smirked as Jean tapped his stomach, making Zabuza stab Jean in the stomach, wounding him, but not in a vital area before Jean stabbed Zabuza in the back with a kunai, directly impacting his right lung. Heh! Death to the dragon flash. Sounds better on a tombstone than dying to a bandit. Zabuza smirked as he fell to the ground, the last of his life leaving his eyes as his eyes closed and his body went limp, death taking Zabuza into its cold embrace as he let out one final cough of blood. May your soul find forgiveness on the other side, Zabuza Momochi, demon of the hidden mist. Jean sighed sadly as he stared down at Zabuza's body. All right, team, head back to Tezuna's house. Naruto, you'll carry Sasuke while Hinata, you carry Naruto. Kakashi and I will carry Zabuza's body so he can have an honorable burial while you carry Haku back to Tezuna's house so he can get checked up a little better. I only did a diagnostics on what my poison chakra did. I have no idea if he got any more injuries from the fight. He continued, getting nods from his conscious students while he picks up Zabuza's dead body, Kakashi helping him by grabbing the Kubikirabocho, placing it on his back and then lifting up Zabuza's right side. The group then walked back towards Tezuna's house, so that Kakashi and Jean could properly store Zabuza's body for his burial and Hinata can look over Haku to make sure he was stable. Jean-sensei, Haku is stable. His neck was a little displaced from the punch Naruto and Naruto landed on his face, along with a little damage to his spine, but it hasn't disabled anything and should heal in a few days. Hinata said after she finished checking Haku over with her Byakugan and fixing anything she could. From what she saw, the poison chakra that had remained in Haku's system from the attack had dispersed already, turning harmless. Also, I took a quick look over Naruto's body. Jean-sensei, it's unlike anything I've seen. It's made of chakra, yes, but the chakra seems to be self-supplying and unique. If I were to compare her to anything, it'd be a tailed beast. Hinata added, making Jin's eyes widen in shock. So, are you trying to tell me that Naruto is a human-tailed beast? Jean asked carefully. Looking over at Naruto with a calculating look upon Hinata's nod. Just what did Kurama do? Jean asked himself, staring at his niece. I don't know, Jean, Dokusiai admitted from inside of Jin's mind. I have a vague idea, but I doubt Kurama would actually. A feminine voice muttered to herself from within Jin's head. Jean, just keep an eye on Naruto and Naruto's seal. I have a feeling I might know what Kurama is planning. Got it, Matatabi. Jean nodded before he started walking up to his room for the night, yawning a little. Omake number 6 Demon Brothers. So, Tazuna, the land of waves, last I heard it was in some financial issues for some reason. Is that still going on? Jean asked Tazuna as the bridge builder and Team 7 walked down a path, leading towards the land of waves. Oh, yeah. We barely got enough money together for me to get this mission. This aren't really good in wave. Tazuna nodded, trying to hide the slight amount of fear he was feeling as Jean nodded before stopping and staring at 2 puddles on the road. This made everyone else stop as well, following his line of sight to the puddles as the genin of Team 7 started to slowly go through some hand signs. Fire style, Fireball Jutsu. Wind style, Great Breakthrough Jutsu. The 2 male genin shouted out as they fired their respective jutsu, which combined into a massive blast of fire, which quickly engulfed one of the puddles while the other puddle turned into a masked ninja, who stared at the other puddle in shock, as the fires died down to reveal a charred body, which almost made the genin puke. Tazuna had no problem doing so on the other hand. Before the nin could get a workout, Naruto ran up to him and formed on hand sign which had Naruto ducking for cover. Hit the deck, Naruto shouted as he hid behind a tree, quickly making Sasuke, Kakashi, Jean and Tazuna do the same, while Hinata rolled her eyes a little.
Sexy jutsu.
Naruto shouted before she was covered in a puff of smoke, which soon dissipated to reveal an older Naruto, who was almost completely nude besides smoke that covered her more private parts. This got an immediate reaction in the nin's pants and nose as he was blasted away by a nosebleed, rendering him unconscious on the ground. Hinata then walked up to the downed nin and disabled his tenketsu, sighing loudly. Naruto, I will only say this once. That sexy jutsu of yours is dangerous. Sasuke shuddered a little, not even wanting to think of what that could do to more perverted enemies. Yeah, and to think it can be used with shadow clones. Naruto nodded while Naruto turned towards the 2 boys, smirking and making a peace sign. Omake number 7 Inari meeting. They're just going to die, sighed Inari, Tazuna's grandson, as he, the rest of his family, Team 7 and Kitsune sat down at a table, eating food. Kid, ninja are made of far stronger stuff than civilians. We won't die that easily. Jean sighed, seeing a look in the child's eyes that showed a broken spirit. You lot come in. Talk about being strong and laughing to each other. You know nothing of pain. Inari growled back at Jean, making all the shinobi at the table freeze and look over at Naruto, who had a thin layer of red chakra coating his body, just enough to barely be visible. You pathetic little pansy. We don't know pain, you say? Tell me, what do you know about us? Naruto asked, his voice holding a dark tone to it as he stood up and walked over to Inari, a slight growl coming from the blonde's throat as well. Inari began to stutter, getting scared as he stared into Naruto's eyes, which were red, his whisker marks being more pronounced before the blonde picked up the young child by the front of his shirt with one hand, lifting him up until the 2 were eye level. Let me tell you something, brat. There are a few people in this room who have had things worse than you. Want me to count them off? First, there is Sasuke Uchiha over there. He had his entire clan murdered in one night by guess who? His older brother. Naruto started, pointing towards the last Uchiha of Konoha before he started going through one-handed hand signs, making Sasuke's eyes widen. Naruto, don't do it. That brat isn't worth using that technique. Sasuke shouted towards his blonde teammate and rival, the trauma that Sasuke attained from the technique Naruto was about to use coming back to him as Naruto finished his hand signs. Namake's secret taijutsu, Jin's therapy special. Naruto shouted as he slapped Inari across the face, making the child cry out, So, tell me, does Sasuke know nothing of pain? Naruto shouted before he slapped Inari more. No. Inari shouted, tears coming from his eyes as he was slapped more. You are goddamn right. Now, let's move on to Jean. Years ago, he was told that every single family member he had left in this world, his brother, his sister-in-law, and his nephew all died in one night. He then learnt, after years of traveling around the world, that his nephew was alive and in Konoha. Tell me, does the loss of loved ones not equal pain? Naruto continued, slapping the poor kid more. Sadly, Naruto didn't give Inari any time to reply before he continued. And then there is Naruko. She owns her whole existence to me, messing up the transformation jutsu and instead using the Uzumaki version of it. As such, the only way for her to live is through a shadow clone of me. That stops her from actually enjoying herself in fear of being dispelled, embarrassing me, or getting my ass handed to me for supposedly being a pervert as I get the memories she makes when she dispels. Naruto continued his barrage, still slapping Inari. Please, stop this. Tsunami, Tezuna's daughter pleaded as Naruto pulled his hand back to slap Inari once more, only for Jin to grab his wrist and shake his head. Naruto, calm down. You have done enough. I think Inari has gotten the message. Drop him and leave. Destroy a few trees or something. Jin advised Naruto, making the young Uzumaki growl before his eyes slowly reverted back to their normal blue state as he dropped Inari and walked towards the front door, opening it before walking out. Naruto takes one last glance towards Inari before slamming the door shut. Omake number 8 after the battle. So, that was an eventful fight. Naruto muttered as the shinobi and Tezuna's family were gathered around the dinner table once more. All besides Naruto. Yeah, it was. Sasuke nodded as well, nodding and rubbing his neck, specifically where a few needles had pierced his skin as Haku sighed, still sad about Zabuza's death and having woken up the day prior. You know, I noticed something that none of us did. Why did none of us use our summons? Kakashi asked carefully, making Jin, Hinata, Sasuke and Naruto stare at him confused. Sasuke, you can summon dragons while Hinata can summon phoenixes. Yet, neither of those creatures appeared on the bridge. Oh, well, the Phoenix clan told me that most of their members hate moist environments and might attack me if I summon them in such conditions. It was more for safety than anything else. Hinata explained while Sasuke sighed and looked at Kakashi. And the reason I didn't summon anything was because of the fact that most of the Dragon Clan are giant, like half the size of the bridge. Finding a small dragon is rare as they are either children or are, as I said, rare. Sasuke stated simply as he continued to eat his food, just before the door was busted open as Naruto rushed in and forced the door shut, panting heavily with terror in his eyes. Sasuke, I now regret ever thinking you might be gay, Naruto said suddenly, confusing everyone in the room, including Naruto. Why would you think that? When have I ever shown myself to be gay? Sasuke asked confused as he looked at Naruto before his eyes widened slightly before narrowing. I see. So you've faced them too, he said, making Naruto nod while Sasuke started leaning on his fists, his eyes gaining a dark look to them. Them? What are them? Naruto and Hinata asked at the same time before Naruto, Sasuke, Jin and Kakashi replied with the same word. Fangirls, they said simply, making the eyes of the girls begin to twitch in annoyance. You know, we should really make a jutsu to stop fangirls. Maybe a combo jutsu. Sexy jutsu wouldn't work. Just make them try harder, Naruto muttered before he walked over to Sasuke sat down next to him. Sadly we can't burn them. Kami knows whoever made fangirls was sadistic, Sasuke continued, making Naruto nod his head. For the love of, I will help you make a jutsu using the gentle fist to get rid of fangirls. Hinata groaned after about 15 minutes of the two boys trying to make up jutsu to get rid of fangirls. Thank you. How about we call it Team 7 Taijutsu? Fangirl repellent. Naruto suggested, making Sasuke look at him along with the others. The first part could use some work, but the second one is perfect. Sasuke nodded while Haku stared at Tezuna and his family, wondering if this was normal, only to get the same look back from the civilians now. We tune in as Team 7, Kitsune and Haku walk up to the front gates of Konoha, finally arriving at the village after a week of traveling. A week which involved both Naruto and Naruto learning about Naruto's new condition, a condition which Naruto was unaware of at first. Since the group had started walking back to Konoha, Haku had been carrying the Kubikirabocho on his back as a memoir of his teacher and father figure. Halt, who goes there? asked Izumo Kamizuki, one of the two front gate guards of Konoha. He along with his partner Kotetsu Hagane guard the entrance to Konoha and make sure that everyone coming in and out of the village sign the correct forms or have permission to enter. Team 7 coming back from an A-rank mission in Wave joined with Umbu Agent Kitsune and Haku Yuki, apprentice to one Zabuza Momochi, now deceased. Jin says calmly, looking at the two Chunin in front of him before smirking in amusement. So, gate duty again, huh? It seems like this is the only job you two do most of the time. Jin joked, getting a chuckle out of Kotetsu. Yeah, it does. I guess that whole eternal guard joke you made last week is coming true. Thanks for that, by the way. Kotetsu joked back before Izumo coughed, getting attention back towards him. Now, Ms. Yuki, please fill out this form, Izumo said, handing a form towards Haku, who quietly and quickly filled it out before handing it back to the Chunin, not saying anything about how the Chunin called Haku by the wrong phrase. All right, everything seems to be in order. You may go in now. Izumo nodded, making the members of Team 7 nod along with their extras, only for Haku to stop a few steps forward and look back at the two gate guards. By the way, I'm a boy, Haku stated, smiling politely as he walked away, leaving one gaping Chunin and another one laughing at his friend's reaction and mistake. Once far enough into Konoha, Jin turned around to face the rest of the group. All right, Kakashi, Kitsune, Haku, and I will go to the Hokage to see about getting him a Konoha citizenship. Mainly because you practically begged us to do so, Naruto. Jin started, making Naruto chuckle lightly and rub the back of his head awkwardly at being called out. Oh, and Naruto as well. I will never understand you two. I swear. Anyway, getting back on track, Sasuke, Hinata, Naruto, Naruko, you four can go off and do your own things for now. We'll meet up back at the training grounds tomorrow to start you back up on training and missions. Jin continued before he walked over to Haku and grabbed onto the feminine boy's shoulder before they disappeared in a spiral of poison, being quickly followed by Kakashi, who disappeared in a spiral of leaves and wind, and Kitsune, who disappeared in a spiral of fire, leaving the genin blinking in surprise before they shrugged. Well, I'll be heading back to the Uchiha compound. I might see if I can get the place cleaned up. I haven't really done that ever since. Well, you three know, Sasuke said awkwardly, despite his much-needed attitude adjustment. Thanks to Jin's harsh training and the gene therapy special being used on him repeatedly, he was still unused to interacting with other people, even his own team. I'll be thinking on that anti-fangirl jutsu for us to make, Naruto said, smiling but shivering slightly, a shiver which went down Sasuke's spine before the Uchiha walked away, waving goodbye to the rest of Team 7's genin, while Naruto and Hinata looked at Naruto, eyebrows raised. Bro, I thought that you were only joking about making that jutsu. Are you actually telling me that you were serious about it? Naruko asked, staring at her brother as if he was an idiot, making the male blonde's right eye twitch in annoyance. Of course I'm serious. Naruko, you have no idea just how terrifying fangirls truly are. I swear that the Shinigami made them for the sole purpose of tormenting those whose souls it was allowed to take, Naruto said without even a hint of joking or humor in his voice and a serious expression on his face, making the two girls sigh in annoyance before Hinata looked at Naruto in the eyes. Naruto, I'll help you with making one. Back when I thought you were joking, I made an idea on one based off of a gentle first technique, Hinata stated calmly, her calmness mostly being faked as despite being braver thanks to being on a team with pretty much two Naruto and Sasuke along with Jin's therapy special gentle addition, she still had her own hidden doubts and of course, infatuations with people don't just die out even in the world of shinobi. Really? Awesome. Thank you very much, Hinata, Naruto shouted happily, hugging the lavender-haired girl, making her face go scarlet from the blush that rapidly covered it. Thankfully for her, she didn't faint from the close contact before Naruto split the two up, rolling her eyes slightly. While you three do all of that, I will go and get some more shinobi-appropriate clothing because this kimono of mine isn't really well equipped for battle. Naruto smiled softly as she spun on her heel and walked away from the group and towards the shopping district of Konoha, either not noticing or not caring about the confused stares she got from many people around her, especially the rare few Hyugas walking around who, upon seeing her, activated their Byakugan secretly before Naruto threw a few senbon that she had hidden in the sleeve of her kimono near their heads, making them turn off their Byakugan and walk away slowly, as to maintain a sense of pride at almost being hit. Wait, how is Naruto going to buy anything? She doesn't have any money. Sasuke asked, confused, while Naruto checked his wallet, his right eye twitching repeatedly as he stared at the lack of money in it, revealing just how Naruto planned to pay, using her brother's money. Naruto, I will get you for this, Naruto shouted, his voice echoing throughout the village while Naruto giggled to herself, and in the Hokage's office, Jin, Hiruzen and Kitsune sighed while shaking their heads.